The interview between Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin is out. Wow, to say the least. The first 30 minutes are a history lesson. Very interesting. And I think Vladimir Putin missed a tremendous opportunity for him, but fine, so be it. Because Tucker Carlson does in fact ask about the jailed Wall Street Journal reporter, and he actually tried to get the reporter home on the spot. And Putin said, nah. We'll get into all of that, and I'll talk about why there was a missed opportunity for Putin. But there are some interesting revelations that came out of that interview. Although Putin does say several times, these are not new statements. I've said these before. I do think in context with Tucker, there are some interesting things being brought up as to the perception of Russia, of Vladimir Putin, and the war as it's happening in Eastern Europe with the United States, etc. Of course, it's what most people said, that Vladimir Putin views a CIA coup, took over Ukraine, got rid of Yanukovych. And there's a lot more we'll get into. I don't want to break down the whole thing because, again, a lot to talk about. But we do have big domestic news, and that is Joe Biden. You know, he had a bunch of classified documents, and for that, he was facing criminal prosecution. But the DOJ special counsel has said he has mental limitations, and it would be hard to convince a jury that he's anything but a doddering old man with memory problems who doesn't have the force of will to actually commit crimes. I kid you not. The DOJ is actually saying, look, this guy's so old, he's going to look really sympathetic for being a doddering old fool. Amazing that he's our president. So we'll talk about that. And seriously, a lot to break down in the Biden department because he once again referenced a dead politician, or a former politician. Now, for the second time, the degradation of Joe Biden, it's getting absolutely crazy. So there's a lot to break down in terms of this Joe Biden DOJ decision, as well as the Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin interview. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. It is the best coffee you will ever have. We got Alex Stein's Primetime Grind, 2 times caffeine. Drink responsibly. That's caffeine can be dangerous. And we've got everyone's favorite Appalachian Nights available in ground, as well as Rise with Roberto Jr. And don't forget, we got coffee pods. We got Appalachian Nights, Rise with Roberto Jr., Stand Your Grounds, Mr. Bokus, Pumpkin Spice Experience. And when you become a member, when you support castbrew.com or become a member of the Cast Brew Coffee Club, you're supporting not only the work we do here because we sponsor ourselves, our company, but you're helping to support the new coffee house location, which we're building. And in 1 month, we'll be holding a private live showing, members only, 50 seats available. Tickets will only be made available to Timcast.com members. So head over to Timcast.com, click join us, become a member. And perhaps within a week or two, we will send out an email with the link to purchase tickets for our Martinsburg, West Virginia live show, which is on the second floor of the building where where the Cast Brew Coffee Shop will eventually be. And the goal for this show, actually, it might be on the third floor. I could be wrong. The goal for this show is to create a space where there is a private club for people like you to hang out and build community, watch movies, share ideas. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's us countering these very expensive social clubs that exist in these huge urban strongholds for Democrats. They cost like $50,000 a year. Well, ours is going to be a bit less than that, but might be like $1,000 a year or something. So not the cheapest, but in order to fund the staff and have food and drinks on hand and pay for the space, it might end up being about $100 a month or something like that. But become a member at timcast.com. If you want to support our work, you'll get access to our members only uncensored show coming up tonight. Don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight is Bill Ottman.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
Hey, I'm Bill. I'm the founder of Minds.com. We're an open source, decentralized social network. Ian is a co-founder as well.
That's right,
once
Bill.
in a while.
Hi.
We just launched on scnr.com a new independent network based on the Mind software, hybridized with inverted tech. So now if you go to the comments on scanner.com, that is, you have to make an account on the Scanner network, and it's all federated on the Fediverse, and this is what we're doing.
It's basically like becoming its own Twitter, essentially.
Right.
And it's a news website with a staff that produces content and everything.
Yes.
Wonderful. We also got Elad hanging out.
Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Elad Eliyahu. I'm a journalist here at Timcast News. Thanks for having me.
Did anyone ever tell you that you look like the lead singer from Young the Giant?
I haven't got that. I usually get, I forgot that Never mind, I forgot his name. When it comes back to me, I'll bring it up.
They're a good band, by the way. They got some awesome songs. But we were watching a music video, and I was like, oh, look, it's Elad's band. And then someone looked and saw, we're like, what? Like, they actually thought it was you for a second. I was like, no. It's
Your hair looks really good today. How it kind of goes up on the side.
It's a good hair day.
Thank you. It was Ruxin. Who plays Ruxin in the league? That's who I get. Nick Kroll. I get told I look like Nick Kroll.
Oh, yeah, Nick.
You can't.
I'm more
That's what I
handsome
get.
Nick from
I
Mouth.
think a sexy version of him, but let's get on with it.
You can't see him, but Mr. Bokus is hanging out right here as well. He decided to come up to the studio, and he's sitting in front of me. But we got Shane Cashman hanging out.
What up? What up? I write about ghosts for Inverted World. This is why I'm reaching out to Joe Biden, the medium in the White House.
He's so close to death,
yes.
he can see the other side.
That's exactly right. The veil is very thin in the White House. I'm also hosting the Minds Fest April 27th with Ian's going to be there. We got Bill's going to be there. We got Tripoli is going to be there. Jimmy Dore, a lot of great people. You can get the tickets right now at the Vulcan Gas Company.
I mean, honestly, it's like Destiny's going to be there. I think Lauren Chen's doing
Right.
stand-up
Luke's gonna be
comedy.
there.
Luke Lukowski's going to.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yep.
Austin's always a great time. And I want to just give a special shout out to Richie Jackson, who got me this banging shirt. Yo, Richie knows my style better than almost anybody. I love it. So Richie, your spirit is with me.
It looks like one of his
It
shirts.
smells
Yeah,
good
really.
too,
Yeah, that might be
Richie.
his
I wonder
shirt.
if he wore it and didn't wash it just so I can smell him. But I like it,
Is there a
Richie.
story to the shirt? Is that from somewhere?
No, maybe Richie, if there is, Richie knows.
It's from New Zealand.
Richie Jackson, the Feech that's FEATCH all over the internet. Check him out.
Very-
Richie
very-
Jackson,
very
one of the
famous
greatest
pro skater.
skaters on earth. Yeah,
very
awesome
famous.
dude, funny guy.
We got Serge pressing the buttons.
Yo, I am here. I'm wearing merch from this famous soda you might have heard of. It's not how you spell my name. My name is spelled SERGE. But yeah, let's get to the show.
Just like a year and a half ago, we bought several cases of Surge because you can
I wish I
still
was
buy
here.
it.
Yeah.
We'll just order more. It's funny. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't like ordering the super sugary stuff. Like we have Liquid Death. It's got 30 calories and a tall boy. So
Yeah, give me
all right, let's read the news.
Yeah, let's go.
From SCNR.com. DOJ will not seek criminal charges against Biden due to his mental limitations. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. Holy crap. They are saying that Biden is so old and broken, he does not have his own force of will anymore.
I think they did
or at the
it-
very least, to be fair, you could not convince a reasonable person that Biden has a mental state of willfulness.
I'm thinking about Reagan. I think they did this with Reagan. Do you remember Ronald Reagan being like, I've got Alzheimer's? And they're like, okay, then you can't punish him for all the war crimes he did or whatever he did in the 80s.
Wow.
He's like, yeah, I don't even remember. And they're like, all right.
You think Reagan was acting?
I think that maybe they played the Alzheimer's thing
As an
up
actor?
to get
He
out
was
of
an
like
actor?
some of the stuff he'd done. I've heard that. That
I
was
think
like
his
a
friends
conspiracy
used
theory.
it
I
to
mean-
like get stuff into like law actually.
If Biden cannot be held accountable because of his diminished mental state, he cannot be president.
No, you're right.
So I did see a tweet from Jack Posobiec, and he was like, because of the classified documents, we may not get a prosecution, but we may get the 25th Amendment.
Yeah.
Right, and that's where we could remove Joe Biden for being,
Yeah.
and then, well, I don't know, Kamala Harris, I guess.
And they were talking about the 25th Amendment at the end of Trump. And people were like, they're using it for Trump, but they were setting this up.
No, it was like
years.
when they announced the 25th Amendment panel was being created, which the 25th Amendment says like you can basically remove an incapacitated president. So they're going to create this committee and then vote out in Congress that would have the ability to make the determination if the president was mentally unfit. Everyone's like, they're going to do this to get rid of Trump. And then within like 10 minutes, everyone's like, actually, they're doing this to get rid of Biden. Democrats are setting this up to get rid of Biden.
Yeah.
What was the lawsuit they were trying to push forward that they said they can't?
No, this is criminal charges. He will not be criminally prosecuted for the crimes he committed. Let me read. In the report, it says, in his interview with our office, Mr. Biden's memory was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. If it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began. In 2009, am I still vice president? He did not remember even within several years when his son Beau died. And his memory appeared hazy when describing the Afghanistan debate that was once so important to him. Among other things, he mistakenly said he had a real difference of opinion with General Carl Eikenberry, when in fact Eikenberry was an ally whom Mr. Biden cited approvingly in his Thanksgiving memo to President Obama. This is the DOJ being like, this guy has no force of will. Like, he's gone.
I thought you were going to say Eikenberry was a cartoon character that Biden used to watch in the 50s.
Eikenberry was the character on the Lots of Berry cereal box.
So do you
Smash,
think he's
eat
going to
corn
make
pop.
it to the end of the term?
No,
Really? You don't think so?
I don't.
What do you think's going to happen?
I don't know. It
mean-
could be many things.
I did say this back in like November. I did a segment where I was looking at all the news and I was like, Biden will be out. He will be out some way. I have to say, like right now, it's hard to believe because it's February and we're so close to the election. I think a reasonable conclusion is, man, if it came down to it and I had to put $10 on he's in or he's out, he's out.
I think they're going to have him do some type of sympathetic step down where he's going to be like this corpse figure giving a speech saying, I can't do this anymore. It's for the better of the country. And they're going to do that to make him, like sympathetic to people.
Well, he won't make it through that speech.
But he won't.
I mean,
You're right.
Like,
They'll need AI.
every speech, he has a gaffe.
Yes.
Like there isn't a normal one.
He's speaking right now, apparently, as well.
Oh, we
I
should
don't know if,
watch. Should we pull it up? I heard that he was going live at like
Are you sure he's speaking?
7:45. Yeah, he did like some unscheduled speech. Maybe he's talking about Putin.
I don't know. I just seen the chat people saying he's speaking live right now. So.
I mean, I don't know if I care all that.
I don't.
I just love that the people who thought Kofef was like Trump being mentally deranged
Yeah,
are okay
really.
with this.
Second one, by providing ammunition and material for them to defend themselves.
Oh, he is live.
Coincidentally,
Yeah, I think he's talking about Ukraine
that's
here.
the time frame when this broke out. I have no proof what I'm about to say, but it's not unreasonable to suspect that the Hamas understood what was about to take place and
he's talking
wanted
about
to
Israel?
break it up before it happened.
Hey, good timing on our part.
He just walks off.
Did a hand just
Did you-
emerge to tell him to come this way?
Did you guys see the? I think so.
What the?
Coincidentally,
Did you guys see the interview he was doing?
time frame when this
Where the
broke
reporter
out.
goes off
I have
script,
no proof what
and
I'm about to say.
immediately his handler's like, oh, Mr. Biden, and he's like, no, I'm going to do this anyway.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
What was about to take place and wanted to break it up before it happened.
I think he's remote controlled.
Dude,
There's a hand.
There's a camera.
I wish it was
okay.
a movie or something to laugh at.
Or is it remote control?
I guess there is a hand on the camera.
What if that is the hand of the real?
When's the last
president?
time he took questions, like full-blown press conference? Never.
Yeah.
They've always
Yo,
been
he's
submitted.
skipping the Super Bowl interview, which is like a big deal. Yeah. Like I guess the second time he's refused to do an interview, like the president does a Super Bowl interview. It's like a big moment in the country.
Really?
So Trump's like, I'll do it, and they're not going to do it, Trump though. I think it's important for history's sake that everyone remember this moment, where you were, a moment you'll never forget, when the DOJ said Joe Biden's mental state had diminished to the point of no longer being a willful human being. That is to say, this is the day when it was determined by our executive branch the president was no longer a sentient human being.
This thing, if someone commits like a crime, but they're not mentally aware, you put them in a mental institution. You don't put them in the jail necessarily. You take them to a hospital because they weren't mentally prepared or mentally cognizant.
I have a story for you guys. It's a story that I've told maybe twice on this show. When I was about 14, in my neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, there was a rumor. Don't know the exact details or how it went down, but this is the story that we were told when we were children. That a girl our age had been crossing the street when an elderly man blew the stop sign, running her over. She was crossing in a crosswalk with a stop sign as an Oldsmobile was coming up, and she didn't think it mattered because the car would stop, but it didn't, and it ran her over. It was a very old man who was driving, and when he hit her, he stopped instantly. She was now underneath his car. Not knowing what he hit, he put it in reverse, backing up, crushing her head like a melon, splattering it. That's what we were told, killing her. And that if he had not moved, she would have lived. The penalty for this was they revoked his license. I mean, what are you going to do? It was an older man. Apparently he was in his 70s or something. And did he commit a crime, or is he just incapacitated at this point? He should no longer drive due to his diminished mental state. So they determined, based on this, we will remove his license. Now, I don't know the full details. I'm sure the story was not 100% that way. That's just what we were all hearing and everyone was saying, because like a girl our age, like went to school at the same time. I don't know who she was, died, but it was like friends of friends. Do we want to wait for that moment with Joe Biden?
No, not for the commander of the military.
When he
no.
presses the button, and then when a city like Moscow is wiped out, and we're facing down the barrel of all of Russia's ICBMs, everyone just says, maybe we should impeach him now.
The thing is, the American people have not been privy to a real military loss in my lifetime. They don't understand what it means if your commander slips up, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and causes the death of women, your wife and your children and your families, and your city is burned to the ground because of some mistake. Immediately he's removed from power. Immediately, whether it's the president, the general in charge, they're stripped of command if they do that.
Well,
People,
not to make you guys think any worse of the guy, but apparently he walked off when we were watching him, and then he walked back out, and then he said that Bibi was the president of Mexico. So
Wait, what?
no.
that's
I
that a
almost
bit,
don't
Serge?
believe you.
That's
Is that a bit?
you may not believe me, but that's what I'm getting from chat. Is that's what he said. So, and you guys don't believe me about Joe
No,
Biden
I don't-
making any
Mexico?
comments like this?
Wow, here we go.
I don't believe he walked back out.
That's what I've been told.
I mean, the stream shut down. Is there some other
wait, does it
video
keep
on X or
going?
something? No.
I don't know.
That's it.
Was that the second time he walked off?
I don't know if there's first one. They said that he walked off and came back at some point.
Maybe they're
he walks
lying.
off
They might be
after a
trolling
reporter
you.
questions him. Then he comes back. Reporters grilled him about his age, his memory. Apparently, that's what happened. Because
Really?
he took questions. So
Well, I suppose I'll have to try and find that on X or something.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's elsewhere, but that's what I was told. So
He won't be charged in classified documents case because he has poor memory. Oh my God. Well, I don't think he should be charged in that stupid case anyway, but not because of poor memory, just because why would you charge an ex-vice president for accidentally or for even intentionally maybe?
So
having a
we
bunch of
have
documents?
this.
Like, it's
let's
just documents.
let's play the clip from Newsmax. So I don't know if he came back out. Here we go.
Something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally out.
His lawyer's going, stop, shut up, stop.
Is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad. I let you speak.
What?
That's
Your
my.
memory has gotten worse.
No, that's right though.
Yo, these
that's
reports.
that's Deucey. Don't give it. He's gonna get you.
Yeah.
If you remembered this, you wouldn't let him speak.
Memory's not good. My memory is fine. My memory. Take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Oh, they're
At least he
reading-
took a question.
No, listen.
Like, do it with the sarcasm.
Right now, his lawyers are facepalming like, the DOJ just let you walk. You went on television and said, no, I'm fine. He literally says, the DOJ says they're not going to prosecute you because your memory's no good. No, my memory's fine. You literally just said, prosecute me.
Yep. Right. I think they're weaning him off all the uppers so he can melt into a pile of skin
yeah.
before they like sweep him off the stage and then let Kamala come in.
When they're like, I hear your memory's bad. And he's like, yeah, my memory is so bad. He's doing the sarcasm thing, which is just indicating that he does believe he has a bad memory. in my
I need to
opinion.
fact check Serge. He didn't say that Benjamin Netanyahu was the president of Mexico. He said Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi allegedly was
my
the president
mistake.
of
My
Mexico.
mistake. I apologize.
So
I'm sorry.
And
I-
okay, hold on. Doesn't matter because we have this from the Post Millennial. Just in. Biden says he will be president for everybody, whether you live in a red state or a green state.
It's incredible.
That's my Christmas joke.
Ian
So
Ian
good.
said this as we were pulling the story up. He was like, he must be talking about Christmas.
Still in December.
And then I said he was addressing the North Pole. Most people don't know this.
Yeah.
But the North Pole, the jurisdiction by which Santa Claus rules, is actually divided into 7 different states with warring political factions between Republicans and the Green Party. Democrats don't exist up there for some reason. And so whether you're in a red state or a green state, this is not a joke. He said this. Yo, let's roll. Here we go.
Said when we pushed all these programs, I said I'm going to be a president for everybody, whether you live in a red state or a green state. When I
God, Joe.
Yo, whenever I see stuff like this, it just reminds me of what was it, Dr. Strangelove riding the atomic bomb down. Like, here we go, baby.
Everybody should watch that movie tonight.
Yeah, but the upside is Tucker's interview with Putin actually gives me like Putin's not demented at the very least. Maybe he's got ulterior motives that we don't know about, but he's clear.
He's intelligent, but he's a good guy in every story he tells.
Can we
Putin?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, can we get like Seamus to make that joke where it's like Joe Biden standing at the stage going, "Right, my memory's good, and you know, if you live in a green state, I told you." And then he starts walking away, and then as soon as he goes in the other room, he goes, all right, what's the next move we're making?
We made it off.
And they're like, Mr. President, the act worked. They're not going to prosecute you because everyone believes you're senile and decrepit.
He might be doing that. True, he might be doing that. I do believe, I don't know if Reagan did that or not. I don't know. But when someone told me that he might have played up the Alzheimer, he's an actor. You know, Reagan was an actor.
Exactly.
The whole like, well, I might go to prison for life, or if I just kind of play along with the whole Alzheimer thing, maybe I'll just get to quietly live out my days.
Right.
And Biden's like, yeah, maybe I'll just play this character of like...
They have to 25th Amendment him at this point. I mean, if they're not going to prosecute him because they're saying he's got a diminished mental state, if they are saying he lacks the will to be able to hold him accountable for his crimes, they've publicly stated he could do anything he wants now. Maybe that's what they want.
The Krasensteins love it. They're tweeting about voting for this guy no matter what his mental capacity
What, today
is.
they did?
One of them did, yeah.
Yeah, but this is why I say they're evil. Because when it comes to the lies from the corporate press about Elon and X, they immediately whoosh, they jump in line and say, oh, the media is lying about Elon. And then when it comes to Trump, they're telling the truth about him.
That's right.
It's like, we know who butters your bread. The Democrats and X. You make money on the platform, and they posted, we only made $400, in the past pay period. And I'm like, yeah, so you're desperate to make more.
Exactly.
They'll just say whatever it is benefits them, and if it's the establishment narrative or if it's X, their position makes no sense.
Yeah. Yep.
I like them a lot. I'm not refuting what you guys are saying. I don't know, but I know they're not really political guys. At least according to them, they're like, dude, I feel stuck in politics right now. And I don't know how to
politics.
I don't care about these two guys.
Money off of it.
But who cares about these two guys individually?
Yes.
It's the issue of the left grift.
Yeah.
Their positions just align wherever the power is for them, and they'll take it. So yes, you have people like them. You have many others happy
Bill Maher
that Joe Biden is mentally diminished and won't be prosecuted, and they would rather vote for him than Donald Trump. Makes no sense. It's Trump derangement syndrome is going easy on these guys.
Yep.
Trump psychosis syndrome or something.
If Trump acted like this, they would have been having meltdowns in the streets. They would have had
It would be all
insurrections.
over TV. People would be pointing out how slow he is. They'd be putting it up against what he was like 6 years ago,
Right.
and they'd be like, "Look how much worse he is."
Yep.
It would be, "Don't vote for this guy. That guy is bad."
Yep.
I wish they would give Biden the treatment, man.
Maybe
I wish they would show
hold on.
people.
I feel bad. What if Joe Biden was speaking in context, and the post-millennial with this clip, they just pulled a fast one on us, and Biden was talking about Republican states or states that have legalized marijuana.
That's right. And for those that aren't watching this, Tim just read that from a Krasenstein tweet. That's what that was. So
He was clearly referencing states with recreational marijuana.
Referencing the Green Party. It was the Green Party.
It was interesting that
the Green
Tucker was pushing Putin on well, why don't you just call up Joe?
Yeah, that was funny.
And Putin didn't seem to think that would be productive.
He laughed
for understandable reasons.
Right.
But I actually appreciate that kind of a question, because I feel like world leaders actually don't call each other up a lot. They have their kind of handlers talk, and it's just
Putin was way wrong on this one. He should Putin. I'm sorry.
should call him.
I watched that interview, and I won't get into all of it, but he missed a lot of. He has proven himself to be an ineffective leader. And just I want to save it for the next segment we do because it's a big story. But I just want to say, in this context, he absolutely should call Joe Biden, because then he's going to be like, "Hey, Joe, who's this? It's your brother, Joe. Oh, what do you need? $100 billion. Oh, tell me where to wear it. Wire it to Putin. Okay." He can get anything he wants. He can call him and be like, we should get our troops out of Ukraine. Oh, whatever you say, brother. What are you doing calling me from Russia with a Russian accent? He's going to be like, hey, that's how I talk now. Oh, okay. Just take the opportunity. If he's
Joke.
It's a joke. It's a funny joke. Yeah.
I think when when Tucker was like, "Why don't you just call Joe and work some stuff out so we can avoid World War III?" Putin was like, "It's already taken care of. We don't need to worry about it." Like he seemed like they have people and the Americans have people that are already decided we're not going to have World War III. That's what it seemed like. It sounded like.
I like that it seems easier for Tucker to interview Putin than it is for him to interview Biden. Right? Biden's not going to sit down with Tucker. They trotted out all the people, even Hillary last night, to condemn this interview. He could go to Russia and interview Putin.
Western journalists haven't even bothered interviewing Joe Biden.
I think he interviewed on the Weather Channel once.
Did he? No, but it was funny because when Tucker said that, he was wrong, but he was right. Okay, here's the issue. Russia came out and said, Tucker Carlson is incorrect. A lot of people have reached out to us for interviews with Putin, but we just turned them down. But I got to push back on Russia. the people contacting Vladimir Putin for interviews are not journalists. They're state actors and propagandists and smear merchants. Tucker Carlson may be one of the only journalists who's actually tried to get an interview with Vladimir Putin. So the issue is when Tucker's talking about Western journalists, he's referencing like, Libby Emmons or Steven Crowder's team or James O'Keefe. Like, why isn't James O'Keefe tried to interview? Because he's not talking about the New York Times CIA assets or the Daily Beast or Rolling CIA Stone.
Right.
I'm kidding, by the way, but like, as if anyone thinks these news outlets are anything but mouthpieces for the state. Come on, you're full of it. You can watch James O'Keefe, and what I love about how they go after James is that when he was doing these sting operations on like Google, they were like, he's far right, and he was like, are you implying that by going after Google, they're far left? Like, I don't understand what your point is. He goes after these big tech companies, and then immediately the media calls him far right for doing so. Or they claim that he only goes after left-wing organizations. And he's like, is Google left-wing or are they just a big tech company? But they expose themselves when they do this. You take a look at, we can mention this briefly, like, I don't know if you guys saw this. NBC News, it advocated for putting Chaya Raichik of Libs of TikTok in prison. Do you see this? They did a big thread where they were like, following several posts by Libs of TikTok, bomb threats happened. And then on NBC News, this lady's like, is there a possibility we can hold her accountable for this? And the guy's like, well, she didn't do the bomb threats, but that's where they're going with it.
Well, they would love for stochastic terrorism to become like actual law.
Oh, because then it's just anything's interpretable as being illegal. Like at that point saying like, I just plain don't like Joe Biden. That's a crime. Won't someone rid me of this priest becomes a capital offense.
Do you think that leftism in general is inherent to corporate, like totalitarian corporate technocracy? Like, is that a leftist thing? The idea of like governing with corporatism?
No. Corporatism could be left or right. There's this kind of like the interesting thing about the fascists and the Nazis is a better way to put it, is that it was a pseudo market system. But there was an ideological capture as opposed to communism where you had state capture. So with the communists in Russia, they're basically like, you will do as you are told, you report to us. With the Nazis, they were like, how come you aren't producing steel for our effort? You're not a traitor, are you? And then they're, no, I'll do it. And it was more like, with the Nazis, it was cancel culture. It was fear that you'd be shunned, ostracized, or worse as time progressed. And so everyone just fell in line. Because, Kristallnacht, for instance, like just mass rampage of destruction and targeting of people. It was fear that you'd be targeted too if you fell out of line. With the communists, they wore uniforms, marched to your house and shot you in the face. You know what I mean? So they were like right there telling you what they were doing. And I will state this too with the caveat. I read one academic paper on it talking about the economic structure of Nazism and how it permeated through Germany. So it's probably much more nuanced than that.
The Nazis had they masked like a great revival of their economy basically by building tanks, and they were telling everyone they were building cars, and then they were like, we have no way to make profit on what we're doing, but we're amassing resources to build, because their whole plan was just to conquer foreign land and then repay their debts through riches, conquered. It was just a mess of an economy, and it looked so good on paper.
Let's talk about Vladimir Putin. So we have a bunch of stories to break down. The interview Tucker Carlson had with Vladimir Putin is officially up on tuckercarlson.com. It is a must watch. There are some dry points, I must admit. The first half an hour is a history lesson. I literally fell asleep. Forgive me, but I'm falling asleep. Listen, it's like 1826, the state of Rus, and the baptism, and I'm just like, this is okay. Tucker actually caveats the interview in the beginning saying, we thought he was pattering for time, but there was no time limit to the interview. So he's like, I genuinely believe Putin was expressing his statement that there is a historical claim to Ukraine we have. And I agree with Tucker. And I don't see why anyone in the U.S., anyone in the West, even the government, would take a different view than Tucker did. Putin is explaining that historically Ukraine is theirs. That's basically what he's saying. And that shows motivation for this conflict. But one of the biggest issues that we had mentioned leading up to this interview was whether or not Tucker Carlson would ask about Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter who has been in jail for just about a year. Turns out Tucker Carlson not only did ask Putin about this journalist, but actually requested that Putin release him into his custody as a sign of good faith to return home. Bravo, Tucker Carlson. Wow. And Putin made the biggest mistake of the night. He said no. He did say a deal could be made. Interestingly, he went on to say that this 30, I believe he's 32.
Yeah,
he was
man.
caught red-handed with classified information, and he was under the direction of U.S. agencies. He may be a journalist, but we know who's really pulling the strings, and he was seeking secret government information, confidential classified information, which basically makes him a spy. Now, I'll just say this. The big narrative leading up to this interview was that Tucker Carlson was a mouthpiece for Vladimir Putin, and that Vladimir Putin was going to lie, propagandize to justify his invasion of Ukraine, and not to believe him. The fear was that Tucker Carlson was giving a platform to a war criminal. Imagine how bad it would have been for the Western media and the press when they were forced to report Tucker Carlson returns home with Evan Gershkovich, saving his life from Russian jail. Vladimir Putin agrees in a good faith effort and returns the American journalist home. Tucker Carlson would have taken the headlines across the board. The interview would become the biggest, bigger than it already is, and it would put everything Putin says on a pedestal. But Putin made that mistake, and he said, hey, what do I get out of it? We'll think about it. Putin should have just said, absolutely, Mr. Carlson, I want you, because then when Tucker Carlson's plane landed, every news outlet in the country would have a reporter waiting at the airport. There would be 10,000 cameras. Tucker, what happened? Evan, what's going on? And everything then said in the interview would be 1,000-fold. Wow.
I think Putin's a straight up extremely cynical political actor, however. And if he was able to get for Brittany Griner, he traded Victor Bout for that. I'm reading it was only in December 2022. So Putin knows he could get a lot for this journalist, and I think he knows, and we're going to be seeing more of this around the world. China's going to be doing more of this, or has been doing a lot of this too. We're going to be see a lot of this happening in Iran too. But kidnapping and then these rogue, cynical political regimes trying to exchange those for political prisoners that are serving in the U.S. who are actual criminals. I don't believe this Wall Street Journal, Evan Gershkovich. He's only, I think, 32, is any sort of spy. Journalism is illegal in Russia. So I think I need to commend Tucker Carlson for even asking about this, though. I need to give him credit, especially with all the hype surrounding this interview and leading up to it. I don't know. So again, right after commending Tucker, I do have to say, though, when he did interview Kanye, he did cut out certain portions. I don't know if this is the full interview that he did conduct. I don't know if in the next couple of weeks we're going to see a leak of other footage go down, but I wasn't able to see all of it. But from what I saw, I think Tucker did a relatively fair job.
Did he didn't bring up Snowden at all, did he?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
That's kind of been under the radar, Snowden over in Russia.
Also, what's her name that accused Joe Biden of sexual assault? Tara Reid. She's in Russia. But
Yeah,
I don't want to derail
she
away from.
fled to Russia.
Yeah, she's there now. She just did an interview with God. Who was it? Was it Ivory Hecker? She did an interview with somebody.
I can't believe Putin didn't just say yeah.
Yeah, that would have been truly epic, and I don't think he had considered that.
Well, he could get so much for it.
And
He
he's on
got
the
Victor
spot.
Bout.
No, but I
Goodwill,
understand what you're
man.
saying. That's
You want
true.
plus 15 goodwill,
He got
you
the
know?
merchant of death for a WNBA player. I mean, it's crazy. But just think about. I mean, in this interview, we'll get into this in greater detail. He said that he approached Bill Clinton about joining NATO, and that Clinton said, "Yeah, actually, yes." But then later that night came back and said, "You know what? We talked about it. No, it's not going to happen." There were key narrative points Putin clearly wants to be heard. Unless, to be honest, maybe he does not care at all one way or another what the American people think. I'd imagine that as the president of a country that is currently at war with the West, he would want to propagandize the West as much as possible to shatter sentiment, any favor towards funding and supporting Ukraine, which is actually just NATO war efforts. And that's how you do it. What value do you get from some Wall Street Journal guy? He's one dude, but you could amplify the power of that interview. So, I think ultimately for the United States, it's just a good thing Putin misstepped here and didn't do these things.
When it comes to the propaganda, he did say in the war of propaganda, it is very hard to defeat the United States. They control the media. Like, he knows what he's up against. And I also think when it comes to the Wall Street Journal journalist, he probably doesn't want to show like weakness. You probably see it as weakness to give into an interview and say like, I'll release someone just because Tucker Carlson asked.
Oh, I disagree.
You think so?
Strength.
You think it's strength for him to be like, okay, since Tucker brought it up, it'll be good. It'll look good for me publicly to release someone instead of doing it on his own volition.
Absolutely.
If he's like, the good faith of
He would
you
say,
coming
Tucker,
here is enough, is all I need.
You have come to me to allow me to speak to you and those who follow you to share the views that we have, knowing that our countries do not agree. For your efforts, I will release to you Evan Gershkovich. And I'm telling you, like, every journalist would have 10 photographers waiting at the airport as the plane is landing. All the cameras are going to be filming it from every possible angle. It would have been the biggest story in the world.
Right.
To be fair, it probably already is the biggest story, but it would have been substantially larger. Yeah. And it's I imagine the worst thing for the West, that Tucker Carlson not only shared Putin's narrative, but that Putin showed to be amicable. Imagine coming back and Tucker saying, they are lying to you about the position of Vladimir Putin and why he's at war in Ukraine. They are lying to you about who he is. He has, even as a sign of good faith, released to us this reporter. Putin's bad at what he does. I mean, he's really good at a lot of things he does, but this was his massive opportunity. I'm surprised he didn't say yes.
The backlash to the interview, though, is like, did no one watch the Oliver Stone stuff?
Yeah,
it didn't happen that long ago. And like, you get the same feeling. He's a charming, intelligent guy, whether you like him or not. Like, he's good at interviews.
I think he rehashed too that he is a Russian irredentist, and I know it's cliche to say at this point, but he does believe that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the biggest like geopolitical strategy, and he was a part of the failure
right.
and one of the, well, it depends on who you ask. So I do think he's still cynically thinking about these things. He wants as much of Ukraine as he's going to be able to take. And if there is a ceasefire in Ukraine, I'm sure down the line, he'll be interested in taking another bite of it. And if there's any part of NATO that collapsed with Estonia and Latvia, I'm sure he'd want to take a chunk of those too, because again, he sees those as a part of Russia, all of the former USSR. It's bad and dangerous, and I think we need to be more clear-eyed about the threat he poses.
But I can also give you one very, very obvious, reasonable reason why he did not release this person. It's very easy for us on the surface to say, look at the political PR opportunity. The other reality is that Evan Gershkovich actually has very serious classified information in his brain.
Oh, that's true.
That simply by speaking to the CIA would compromise the security position of Russia, so he will never be released.
Yeah, I see. It is possible, I think, for a journalist to be over there and be a spy. We know they're spies. We've been infiltrated over here for years, you know? It's definitely possible.
I don't think they have
it's
free speech and a free media in Russia, though.
But it's
writ large.
It's the, you know, it's the subliminal, the liminal, and the superliminal, right? The superliminal being like an American reporter working in Moscow, just quite literally reporting whatever is going on, making sure that information comes to the American public. That's the on in your face. Then you have people who like maybe at one point worked for an industry or whatever, and they're over there and they learn things and they post on social media. But the subliminal is like under the surface, one way or another, reporting to a U.S. agency to deliver information. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when we have like Xinhua or RT or Sputnik, these are just regular journalists. Mm-hmm. To be fair, like Xinhua, they're reporting to the Chinese Communist Party, so like there's no really, you know, they're spies, but their work is above board. It's superliminal. It's like they're quite literally saying, whatever you tell me, I'm going to share with China and the Chinese Communist Party. But we do have spies, probably sneaking across the southern border right now for China, and we know it's happening. So for this to happen, I got to be honest, when they announce something like a reporter got arrested, my immediate thought is not, oh no, they've arrested an innocent journalist, they must be evil. My immediate thought is like, interesting. I need to hear more about this because innocent until proven guilty. I don't trust Vladimir Putin, but at the same time, I don't see him creating this kind of problem and PR problem unless it means something. Yeah. The arrest of Gershkovich means that people in the United States are going to be aggressive towards Russia, and he knows that. So there's a reason. And I'll say it again. You know, on the surface, I'm saying it was an opportunity to release him. I wonder if Gershkovich actually learned something so serious that he cannot be allowed to speak to the Americans or to the West in general.
That would be crazy.
I mean, probably.
I like the part where Putin says, Tucker asks who blew up the Nord Stream. And Putin goes, you did. He goes, Tucker goes, I was busy that day. And then Putin says the CIA didn't have an alibi.
CIA?
Wild. CIA, yeah. CIA didn't have an alibi. Who else could sink to the bottom of the Baltic Sea?
This is an interesting one. This is from the same interview. Putin slams U.S. and Bill Clinton for deceiving Russia over NATO membership as he trashes Biden, praises Trump, and warns there's no stopping his supersonic missile system. This is interesting. Putin says that Bill Clinton offered Russia a place in NATO, but was overruled by his staff. So basically what happens is Putin was like, look, in the 90s, I meet with Bill Clinton, and there's pictures of it. Tucker posts a picture. He includes pictures in the interview. And I said, look, if Russia wants to join NATO, would that be possible? And Bill Clinton said, I think so, yeah. And then comes back later that night for dinner or whatever. I think that's what he said. And Clinton says, we talked about it. It's not going to happen. Putin said the reason was the U.S. applies pressure on all the NATO member states, and they vote the way the U.S. wants. Having a nation as powerful as Russia, as large, would mean that U.S. influence would be compromised to a certain degree within NATO. I'll say outright, that is Vladimir Putin's propaganda. On this, look, I'll tell you, first and foremost, obviously the U.S. exerts the most influence over NATO, especially when we're footing all the bills. But also, his reason for why he got kicked out of the club, I'm not going to take it at 100%. I think there's some truth to it, but he's giving you the I'm always the good guy narrative.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Nord Stream stuff, did you see this was a while back, but the New York Times had a headline that was like, it's better that we don't get the truth. Yeah, it's better that we don't know. That headline was the creepiest one. It's New York Times. Oh, you're looking for the recent stuff?
Yeah.
But it's just bizarre. I mean, Biden just point blank said that we did it, basically.
He told Tucker Carlson Ukraine war can be over in a few weeks. Also, there's no stopping Elon Musk. Very interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, the Ukraine war stuff with Putin is exactly what everyone already heard. And I got to be honest, I was saying this. I don't think we're going to hear things from Putin that we haven't already heard. There were a few things, but even Putin said several times, these are not new statements. What happened with Ukraine? Very obvious. Putin said, we never agreed to allow NATO to expand against our borders. They started doing it anyway. We kept saying, please stop, please stop. They kept doing it. They kept building bases, and we said, please stop. And they said, don't worry, it will. And they kept doing it anyway. And then he said the CIA staged a coup in Ukraine with Yanukovych, which led them to the position they're in now. And it was interesting. He said what happened was, this is why they don't want you to hear this interview. This is why they didn't want Tucker to do it. Ukraine was in a free trade agreement with Russia that allowed open border customs. They could ship goods in and out. When NATO and the EU began knocking on the door of Ukraine, Russia said, this will flood our market. If Ukraine gets similar access into Europe, all of that labor and products and services will enter Ukraine. And then with an open border on our side for open customs border, we then have to deal with a flood to our market. So we told them, if you do this, we close our border. Yanukovych, the time president of Ukraine, had to make a decision. How much money is to be gained or lost due to these agreements? And we've actually talked about this quite a bit because I was in Ukraine when this was all going down, when the Maidan protests erupted. And the issue was that Yanukovych was trying to figure out whose side to take. Russia was making them an offer. European Union was making them an offer. In these big cities like Kiev and closer to the West, they were very EU favorite, like they wanted to be in the EU. Because access to the EU not only meant more money, but it meant eventually Schengen zone, which is free travel. A Ukrainian could then do what many people in Poland were doing, go to the UK and get a job. And all of a sudden you're making more money. Bad for people in the UK. He didn't like what was going on with this. But a lot of people from Eastern Europe would move to Western Europe where the economy was better. So Yanukovych had to make the decision. And when it didn't look like he was going to make the right decision, Vladimir Putin's making the accusation, the CIA staged a coup to oust him. People stormed his house, his mansion, started going through his belongings. Like there were vice journalists walking through his house. Totally crazy. He fled to Russia over this. He says that was it. Like they staged a coup and now here we are. And then one thing led to another. The U.S. says they're going to support the opposition against him. And he's like, why? That means we're going to build missiles in opposition to you. And then he's like, we've got, the best missiles and you can't stop us. And here we are. I will say though, for what purpose? And maybe Elad wants to chime in on this one. Is the U.S. involved? And at this point, it is, I would say, 100% confirmed beyond a reasonable doubt to any sane human being, the United States is at war with Russia. For what purpose should we be engaged in this? I mean, I'm not saying you do have an opinion on it. I'm curious your thoughts, though.
I don't like to call it. I don't like to say that we're at war with Russia because we don't have boots on the ground fighting Russians. Except there have been reports that there are some special forces, but I still think that those are relatively ambiguous. But on paper, we're supposed to not have troops on the ground in Ukraine right now. Right now, we are just arming the Ukrainians to be able to fight back against the Russians that invaded them. The argument to continue supporting the Ukrainians is that if Ukraine falls, Putin will continue trying to push westward as the Russians have been doing for centuries, and they'll eventually brush up against a NATO ally of ours. And if they do, that could trigger. Brush up and be ambitious enough to try to invade one of our NATO allies. More borderland with Russia allows for more risk of that conflict escalating.
But NATO did that. NATO inducting Eastern European states into NATO put NATO on Russia's border.
I think it's like, yes, in some areas. It's also like a chicken before the egg problem because Russia says that, hey, this is what's triggering us and heightening tensions between us. But these countries want to join because Russia is aggressive towards them. So like a chicken before the egg thing. I do think if Estonia, if the United States loses the political will to continue having NATO be a thing, if NATO ever dissolved, there's no reason for Putin not to continue to push westward. Definitely Latvia, Estonia, and as far as he could get.
Why?
Back into World War II. Because he's a Russian irredentist. Because he believes that all those countries are a part of Russia. Like as he believes Ukraine is. And and you know, within his lifetime, within Putin's lifetime, those things were true. That this was a part of the USSR. Yeah.
That's a great point, actually, because Putin literally opens the interview by saying, historically, and this is a fact, Kiev was the capital of Russia. And then after he breaks down in the first half an hour of the Tucker interview how the states broke apart and this resulted in the states of like Rus or whatever he said coalescing around Moscow. Thus the capital moved. And Tucker even says right in the beginning, Putin's position seems to be there is a historical claim to Ukraine as a part of Russia.
Yeah.
And if that's true for Ukraine, I agree. Why would not it be true for the other Eastern European states?
I think we liberated those countries during the World War II, and then by forcing the dissolution of the Soviet Union, we were able to liberate the Eastern European countries from communism. And I think that's something we should be proud of.
I'm curious what everyone thinks about this. For me, that hour, maybe 40 minutes of a long build through history that Putin gives, for me, leads up to this like denazification thing he talks about. And is that something we buy? Do you think he really believes in that?
Do you buy that in good faith when he says he's denazifying Ukraine? Do you like?
I don't know. Yes. I know there's Azov that we got to worry about. There's clearly something going on. And we also know he brings up the Canadian Parliament applauding the Nazi with Zelensky.
I say yes, but when I buy a dilapidated old house and then and someone says, why are you buying it? Well, I got to get rid of the roaches that are inside of it. Is that the real reason that I bought the house? No.
Right.
Do I really want to get rid of the roaches? Yes. But the real reason I bought the house is to clean it up, take it over, make a profit. And the reason I'm getting the roaches is to that benefit. Yeah. So, of course, he wants to get rid of the Nazis and the Azov and those who have held those views because the Soviets fought the Nazis. They're enemies.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you know, he wants
primary.
the house.
It's dangerous too because there's no limiting principle. Because I'm looking forward to hearing about the Finnish Nazis and the Nazis in Estonia and the Nazis in Latvia.
What about the Nazis here? That's when the crazy side of my brain when I hear Putin say that. I'm like, and then you asking a lot about why are we at war with them? I'm like, well, Operation Paperclip, because we got Nazis in the government still who want to fight Russia and take it back. You know. But maybe that's crazy.
Cue the cutscene 5 years later, and it's like a bunch of Russian ships soaring into the shores of California and Florida, and we're like, oh no, it happened.
Yeah, right.
Why didn't we believe Joe Biden?
Hologram Hitler standing on the shore.
And this is all a huge issue. And I mean, maybe we go back to Joe Biden, but I think the Americans really deserve competent leadership up top, one way or another. I know we disagree geopolitically, but we deserve somebody who at least seems like they are actively making the decision with some sort of direction in mind. We're not only having conflict right now in Russia, Ukraine's taking the backseat, but we just drone striked Hezbollah's branch in Iraq. We just killed some militia leaders there. We had 3 of our service people killed in Jordan not too long ago. Also, I believe 2 of our special forces were killed somewhere in the Red Sea on a mission to try to prevent more arms going to Yemen from Iran. So,
you said a word I don't really understand. What is competence? How does that work? Is that something that the government can do? Is that
can instill in people? Yeah, I mean, like if you put a smart sounding individual in front of me instead of Joe Biden, who just seems like kind of blabbering and ridiculous. But I hate to say a Ron DeSantis like figure. That's no endorsement. I don't particularly like him, but Ron DeSantis generally sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He sounds like he has some direction
Only
Joe
before
Biden.
and after running for president.
That's right.
Not during. Not during his campaign.
I honestly I can't think of
A worse example?
No,
of a
like
person?
DeSantis is better than Biden, obviously, but in terms of a good salesman in government who actually can pitch something and make it sound believable, Obama was that. And right now, I don't know. I don't know if I can name somebody. Is there someone in politics who could really convince you of something?
Well, Vivek could. If
That's true.
He's honest about stuff.
Vivek
at
could
least.
convince me of one thing, that he's a cynical politician trying to sell me something. In my opinion,
No,
in my
I
experience,
agree with you, dude. I agree with you.
He'll hear something that's popular. In my opinion, as I interpret it, whenever wind direction he sees the political winds blowing, he'll hop right on board. And what triggered me the most about that was his January 6th flip flop.
Yes.
But
Dude, I'm with you
I
on
think
that.
we need to be more cautious about very cynical political actors.
I don't know if it was a full flip flop though. I mean, I think it's possible on January 6th to see that it was kind of like not a cool scene, but also not think that it was an insurrection. Like it's
But he
possible
cried.
to have both of
But
those.
he cried
views.
about it. I think I don't
cried?
believe it. I don't trust him. I really don't. I think he says a lot of things I really agree with. So I
because
gotta
you
watch my
want to hear them,
confirmation
because
bias.
he
I'm
wants
cynical.
to win you over.
And I'm
Yeah.
cynical, but like, yeah, I don't think the guy, if he runs again, if he doesn't do like a Rumble podcast deal, he won't be the same Vivek in 28 that I think he is.
I think he had a good opportunity to run as like the Trump #2 while Trump was.
We need a
MAGA
competent
coattails.
leader that's going to be honest with people and be like, we're creating a new world order, this liberal economic order. The time is done of American dominance, military dominance. We're creating something new, so let's get on board. The U.S. Constitution is legit, and we're going to force this thing on the world. That's part of our bargain of, yes, we'll go
So
along
we're not going to
peacefully.
be strong, but we'll be extra strong.
Yeah,
You will be free.
We're gonna peacefully allow for this transfer to a new global ordinance, but we're gonna make sure that free speech is at the center.
No, I don't
I want to jump to the next story, but I do got to give a shout out to this one segment Cassandra McDonald posted. LMAO Putin called out Tucker Carlson for wanting to join the CIA. Let's play it.
Armed opposition committed a coup in Kiev. What is that supposed to mean? Who do you think you are? I wanted to ask the then U.S. leadership.
With the backing of whom?
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in.
It's
that caught him
choppy
by
because
surprise.
it was actually sped up and then slowed down.
Was Tucker looking at going to the CIA, joining the CIA?
Yes.
Supposedly.
Look,
I like
it is a serious organization. I understand. My former vis-a-vis in the sense that I served in the first main directorate, Soviet Union.
Yeah, he was KGB. He
I
knows
like
what
that
he's talking
part.
about.
Where he's trying to be
Very,
charming with
very
Tucker.
good. And shout out to Tucker Carlson for keeping that in there. And you know,
Is there any other coverage of that, or is he kind of like exposing that?
that he wanted to be in the CIA?
Yeah.
I think that's been
everybody
out.
knows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's been out.
yeah.
Yeah.
But let's jump to this. This is big news today. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments over the issue of Donald Trump being removed from the ballot under the 14th Amendment, Section 3. Did you guys listen to the oral arguments?
Not all of it, but like half. Yeah.
Holy crap. The Democrat lawyer was getting spanked by all of them. And many are suggesting it was so bad, it might be a unanimous Supreme Court ruling. No, you can't remove Donald Trump. What the are you thinking? Wow. It was wild hearing Ketanji Brown be like, I mean, she's the leftist woke justice. And she was like, it doesn't say president. It's not in there. And he's like, and she's getting angry. And he's like, but we think the president's office. And she's like, the president appoints officers. It's not in there. Gorsuch said, the president commissions all officers. It's in the Constitution. How is he an officer himself? He didn't appoint himself. Yo, it was absolutely wild. And basically, it broke down amazingly. Let me actually just read, give you some context from the AP, and then we'll talk a bit about it. They said the Supreme Court seems poised to reject attempts to kick off Donald Trump. A definitive ruling for Trump, the leading Republican candidate for president, would largely end efforts in Colorado, Maine, and elsewhere to prevent his name from appearing on the ballot. The justices could act quickly, possibly by Super Tuesday. Conservative and liberal justices alike questioned during arguments to Thursday whether Trump can be disqualified from being president again because of his efforts to undo the 2020 election. Their main concern was whether Congress must act before states can invoke a constitutional provision that was adopted after the Civil War to prevent former office holders who engaged in insurrection from holding office again. There also were questions about whether the president is covered by the provision. Now, here's what's interesting. There's a lot of things that were brought up in this, hearing the arguments, that I didn't know. So under the United States is a statement in the 14th Amendment that, you can't hold office under the United States or something like that. And Trump's lawyers argued the presidency is not an office under the United States or an officer under the United States. Senators are officers of the Senate. And the reason why that matters is because the impeachment clause and the emoluments clause, that if the Supreme Court were to determine that the presidency was covered by this, it would also mean the president is able to enrich himself through the office of the presidency being exempt from the emoluments clause. So the lawyer was like, you need to understand what this statement means, and your ruling pertains to many other areas of the Constitution. So more importantly, the president is not covered in the 14th Amendment. And one thing Trump's lawyer said was, don't you think they would have explicitly put the president in there if they thought it was the most pressing office to bar for an insurrectionist? I think my argument as to why the framers of the 14th did not do that is really simple. The reason why you can't be a senator or congressman or hold any other office or be an appointed officer is because the other states, the North, did not have say in those appointments or positions or elections. So if you are South Carolina, Civil War ends, then South Carolina says, okay, this guy was an insurrectionist who fought against the United States. Let's send him to D.C. The North says, no, wait, hold on. No, we say no to that. But we can't vote on that. So we're laying it out in an amendment to the Constitution to outright say, don't do that because we have no say. Now, as for the presidency, well, we get to vote on that. So we don't need to lock out someone from being president because we can choose through the Electoral College and through our system whether or not the president will be an insurrectionist. In fact, the 14th Amendment actually says Congress can, by 2/3 vote, override this restriction. So it's actually really simple. If New York gets a vote in who is being sent to the federal government, then they're fine with it. If they don't, you are barred. Therefore, it's actually really simple. The other issue, oh man, this was wild. Gorsuch was just steamrolling the Democrats. It was a spanking, dude. It was an absolute spanking. This guy was like, as soon as an office holder commits insurrection, they are instantly disqualified. And so he's like, okay, what would compel then a lesser officer of the United States to follow the orders of this person? He had no answer, none whatsoever. Imagine what that means. The Democrats are arguing that on January 6th, Donald Trump waged insurrection against the United States, and for the next 14 days should not have been president, and no one should have followed his orders. So what would happen in a circumstance where their view would be upheld? Someone goes, this was actually asked. I think Alito may have asked this. So when Joe Biden released the funds to Iran, he waged insurrection against the United States, and now nobody should follow his orders ever again. That's what they're saying. If the Democrats have their way, it is instant civil war. I don't know, civil war. No, but I mean it. The idea would be the moment any actor in the government believes within their own person that a president engaged in an insurrection against the United States, they are duty bound constitutionally to defy all orders, legal or otherwise, because they have disqualified themselves from office. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. That's the Democrat position on why Trump should be removed. And the justices were like, are you insane? And not literally saying that, but Gorsuch was just like, if you don't have an answer, that's fine. And the guy was muttering and didn't have anything to say to it. Yeah.
I'm no legal expert, so I won't speak to the legalese involved here, but the strategy among some Democrats to try to disqualify Trump through legal means might actually be a threat to democracy. And if Trump supporters were as threatening and violent as they often imply, that I think this would be a more dangerous trigger moment for somebody who is leading, is the presumptive Republican nominee, former president at this point, just something extremely dangerous over something as ambiguous as trying to call what happened on January 6th, an insurrection, completely outrageous, dangerous, and I mean, I hate to adopt their language, but an actual threat to democracy as people in our country understand.
That was the one thing I was worried about while I was listening to. I think it was about an hour in. I was like, are we not going to talk about what insurrection means? Are we not going to define that word? They're calling out other words. I'm like, because I'm like the death of language, right?
Yeah.
We're all just going to adopt insurrection now in this argument. But then at a certain point, I think it was after an hour, they were like, well, insurrection is an organized violent effort.
Yeah.
And then it might have been Jackson who was like, well, a chaotic one could also do it. Maybe it was someone else.
And then he goes, it's a riot.
It's a riot, right?
Oh,
so they did break it down a little bit.
I'm done playing this game. you are mentally deficient if you think January 6th was an insurrection. Insurrection referred to civil war, taking up arms, standing on a borderline, and shooting at Union officers. Okay? They're not talking about a bunch of unarmed people knocking over barricades and breaking windows.
Right.
It's just I'm done with the manipulation.
I remember everyone, in the immediate aftermath of J6 happening saying, well, Trump used the word fight. I'm like, so has every other president or candidate ever. I thought of Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena. He talks about having blood on your face when doing politics. It's like people use these words. You're just using it as evidence of your narrative.
The fear mongering of trying to dress this up as something that it wasn't is evident. There was none of the actual political machinery of some sort of coup or insurrection happening in the background. We actually spoke to the acting Secretary of Defense on this show. I think it was a little bit over a year ago, who said obviously none of that was happening in the background. All of these people would have been necessary to do any sort of coup. Obviously, none of that happened. None of his cabinet was on board. Mike Pence didn't try to pull anything. Right. Although Trump might have tried to get him to, Pence didn't.
Right.
There was no other electors found in Georgia or what have you. So.
Well, now that we're talking about actual civil war, should we bring up our seventh guest?
Oh, yeah. The flag.
Oh, yeah.
Can I bring it over?
Sure, I guess.
This thing's going to blow your mind.
Civil War flag? Or is it? It's
Yeah.
We have an actual Civil War flag.
It is gigantic, too.
Don't drop it on Bogus.
Look at this.
Bogus is sleeping on the bubble wrap.
Bill Ottman.
I like that it's in a
through.
coffin.
Yeah. Laid to rest.
That's a good
Brought
metaphor
back.
for the country
So
right now.
it's in the shot as much as we can get it right now. So this is an actual flag, 13-star U.S. naval flag used in the Civil War in battle. So this is from Terrence and Sabina Ducat, who are investors in Scanner. And so this is a 13-star U.S. naval flag for the brig Rival, likely an English blockade runner captured during the Civil War. So it was on a ship.
Wow.
And
what's the value of it?
A lot. I don't know if we need to say a number, but
it's a historical relic.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
So can I wear it?
Technically.
We're going to have to mount it, and hopefully we can get in the new studio.
It's shot to shit.
It might be too big.
It might be, but maybe we can have it vertical.
It's because I think it would touch
5 by 11.
You don't want to do that.
5 feet by 11
5 by
feet.
11.
That's
5 by 11?
5 by 11.
That's not so bad.
Yeah.
It can't go vertical though, but 11 feet wide. Because
got to make it happen.
You could drip it from the wall.
I think we could. No.
Outside the.
I wouldn't want. It would be great to be in the studio.
Yeah.
So professionally mounted. Do we gotta frame it?
No. It just needs to be sewn onto a mounting fabric, and then it can be hung.
I think we should frame it.
Sure.
I think we should give it a
cool.
glass case.
Keep it safe.
That would be better, probably.
Non-reflective.
Let's
so it looks good on
let's see if
camera.
we can figure out how to get a custom large glass frame. It's gonna be very expensive to make a 5 by 11 glass frame, but absolutely must be done for something as incredible as this.
Thank you, Terrence.
And then we can have it in the new studio, mounted on the wall.
You said it's been shot up, too? This flag took bullets?
I mean, so check out the. I don't know if you can zoom in on that, Serge.
No,
we
do not have that.
But
It's riddled with bullet holes.
You can see the bullet holes, or I don't know necessarily that they're bullet holes. It has holes all throughout it.
170-year-old flag.
Focus.
It's a beautiful flag. Shout out, American flag.
It smells good. It smells like probably the museum that it had been kept in. I'm not sure. But
I felt like a soldier driving down here.
Dude, it's like falling. It's almost like falling apart when you touch it. But it's worth touching. Get your fingers on it before it gets framed if you haven't yet.
I would not recommend touching
Just finger it very lightly.
Oh,
one little dip. Put your index finger on there and understand what
Respect
they went through. Yeah.
Respect it. Treat it properly.
Don't finger the flag.
Don't finger the flag.
Don't finger the flag,
Not
ladies
that
and
thing.
gentlemen. God, that thing's beautiful, man.
It is
Nice work.
amazing.
Who was it that donated that?
It's on loan to Timcast from Terrence Coman, who is investor of Scanner and also Mines Actor.
Terrence, nice job.
If they're okay with us getting a custom-made glass.
Oh yeah,
frame for
that's
it,
what they would love.
Okay, but then perfect. We'll do it.
Maybe
I
we can put a
imagine that
little-
would be like a hefty penny, but
It'll
we'll
be a
figure
few
it out.
K at least.
Yeah, done. No question.
And we could maybe get a little card that says like on loan from Terrence and then like a link to their thing or something, whatever. That's really cool, man.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's things.
Yeah.
So what was the Civil War about again? Why did we fight the Civil War?
Some dudes wanted like iron or something.
Well, according to Nikki Haley, it was because states wanted their freedom. The government was just not okay with that.
What was the Civil War about? Was it money? Cotton? Controlling the economics of the South?
It was slavery.
British Virginia trade?
Depends on how you ask the question. Why was the Civil War fought is a very different question from what caused the Civil War. What caused the Civil War? Slavery, the expansion of slavery, and the contention between free states and slave states, which had resulted in Bleeding Kansas, widespread fighting that had been happening predominantly in the Kansas Territory, but also in other parts of the country, and ultimately led to an election where Abraham Lincoln didn't receive a single vote in seven states. Or actually, I don't think he received a single vote in any of the states that eventually went on to secede. So I think it was 11. But why did they fight? The South fought because they were invaded.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they called it
Shelby
the war.
Foote's my favorite Civil War writer, and he said that the North thought they were fighting the Civil War, and the South thought they were fighting the second, American Revolution.
They call
What's
it
the best
war?
book?
Yeah.
Which book?
Oh, gee, well, I think it's called the Civil War. It's a whole series that I think he spent maybe 20 years writing. He wrote fiction about the Civil War and also nonfiction. And you should go look up his interviews. He's no longer with us, but an amazing writer.
I know they call it the War of Northern Aggression.
Right.
A lot of people in the South
Right.
refer to it as
Well, it's like
War of
in the
Northern
Putin interview,
Aggression.
he said that in Russia they refer to World War II as the Great Patriotic War.
I think, okay. It feels a little bit different. Like, I don't want people in the South being taught that it's a war of northern aggression because that's not.
Well, what Shelby Foote meant was that there were people in the South who might have not had slaves, and they just saw marauders in their homes burning things down, with the total war from Sherman.
Yeah, but they were fighting for the right
They
for
were fighting
people
to live, but they were fighting to survive Sherman doing total war. But that's not saying everyone in the South, but there were definitely people, I spent a year in Georgia where Sherman kind of went through, and sometimes it wasn't Sherman, it was people pretending to be with Sherman to go maraud and take over farmland. And those people started fighting to save themselves.
There's a lot of people in the chat who are saying it was a states' rights versus federal issue. I strongly recommend you guys read some academic papers and read the letters from many of the generals. I had a great time. Went to Jackson's. I think I went to 2 of his houses. And one of them was crazy. They had a musket in the kitchen. This is what I love about the Second Amendment. They have a musket in the kitchen for shooting critters. So anyone could just grab it off the wall, open the back door, and then wait for a rabbit or something or a beaver or who knows, and just bang, a gopher, and then you throw it in the stew. And you're just it came in my backyard. It is mine. And the gun was just there. But we went to their houses. I read their letters, learned about their wives. And certainly it is a very complicated issue with many different views. But while the general view most people would give you is it was fought over slavery, it absolutely was not fought over slavery. It was caused by the issue of slavery, which Bleeding Kansas existed. Before there was a question of states' rights, people were murdering each other in the Kansas Territory. John Brown was blasting people in the face. Hans Christian wasn't even an American, and he came here to as an abolitionist. Slavery was dissolving in other parts of the world as an institution, and so it could not be an issue of states' rights when Bleeding Kansas was happening 7 years up to leading up to the Civil War. Some argue Bleeding Kansas actually is the Civil War, and we just view the Civil War as because it was when the government actually became actively involved. But Bleeding Kansas, gnarly, 7 years of bloody conflict and bloodshed. Abolitionists and pro-slavery forces were fighting in various territories over whether or not they would be slave states or free states. The slave-holding states believed that with Abraham Lincoln's election, he would not only stop the expansion of slavery, he would get rid of it. And I believe Lincoln's position was, no, you can keep it. We just won't have it in any new territories. So they were just nah, we're not going anywhere near anybody who opposes this. There were 4 candidates running. One guy, I love this. He was just I'm not going to talk about slavery at all. And so nobody cared for him. One guy was more slavery. One guy was completely get rid of slavery. Abraham Lincoln was supposedly the compromise candidate where he was saying, you can keep it, but no more. As soon as he got elected, 7 states said, this is it. We're going to secede. Before he even got inaugurated, the session started. And so what ends up in the fighting over the Civil War is the North invaded the South.
Yeah, and I don't want to be an apologist for war, and I don't want to, but I just want to give nuance to both sides of that war. And I'm talking about Georgia in particular. With the Confederates, these were people whose fathers were invaded by Britain, and their houses were burnt down, not necessarily slaveholders. And then they saw it as a second American Revolution because then they were invaded they saw the North as an invasion. But then there's people on the North in Sherman's army during the March to the Sea who weren't also angels. They were killing freed slaves who were following them just because they didn't want to be followed anymore.
So that's not to say
and-
every person who fought in the Confederacy owned slaves, or
5% of the U.S. population.
Yeah, but they were fighting on behalf of a government who was fighting for the ability for you to still have them.
I would
Yes.
still say not all.
Which
of
is-
them.
And in
you
their
know,
constitution.
Not all, yeah.
But
How they interpreted it.
Yeah.
So although they're defending the right to, so not slave owners directly, but still defending that
However-
right. And I'm sure they were propagandized in different ways
Yeah.
to
No-
believe different things. Yeah.
No, almost no. And I read this I watched this in several documentaries, but I read this in a couple different academic papers. The idea is it's reasonable to assess that no Confederate soldier fought for the right to own slaves, as none of them did. It was only a very small portion of wealthy plantation and factory owners who did. The soldiers were not mobilized under the view that slavery must be defended. They were mobilized under the view that Union soldiers were rampaging through their state and threatening their families. If it were the issue that the Union did not invade, it is likely that they would not have been able to have mobilized a military force to fight the Union, because the average young man at the time was not going to go to war to defend some rich guy's slaves.
Well, if the South doesn't secede, then the North doesn't invade, and we wouldn't let any part of the country secede right now.
Right, so this is my point. The fighting of the war was over for the North, the secession of the South, and whether they had the right to do it. So fair point to those saying it was states' rights to secede versus the federal versus the Union. But that is why the North was fighting. You have no right to secede. Ulysses S. Grant said, you have a right to try, but if you lose, we own you, basically. And it's a brilliant assessment of the issue pertaining to the Revolution and how we won, and the Civil War and how they lost. He basically was basically saying the Americans, the colonists at the time, this is 80 years prior, so not even that long for them. It's kind of wild, right? He's like, they decided they shouldn't be ruled by the crown. They fought, they won. Congratulations. The Confederates feel like they shouldn't be a part of the Union anymore. They fought, they lost. We own it. That's who you're being ruled by now. But so I think it's important to break down this distinction, because when everyone says, what was the cause of the Civil War? I think slavery is an absolutely fair assessment. Like, this led to the great contention in politics. Why was the Civil War fought is an entirely different question. The Union demanded the right to the states. The Southern states said no. And why? And that's actually, I would say, why did the Civil War begin is states' rights versus the federal issue. And why was the war fought? And that is an invasion from the North. Like, plain and simple. If the Union forces decided to let the South secede, there's no war. None. Secession is not war. So what started this? What started the war? The Northern invasion. There you go. They decided, you do not have a right to secede.
So, Mr. Ottman, it sort of begs the question: did you bring this Union Jack flag to this former Confederate
That is not
state?
a Union Jack.
All right.
The Union Jack is the British flag.
What was just the Union flag?
The Yankee flag.
Yankee flag.
This is a Yankee flag.
Yeah, did you bring this Yank flag to this former Confederate state just to mog on him a bit?
I think West Virginia was the first state to leave the Confederacy. I could be wrong. We can look it up.
So
it was taken.
I believe that West Virginia is like statehood done dirty, man.
That's right.
Did you also know, tidbit, West Virginia's original proposed name was Kanawha.
Oh, that's cool. Sounds like a Native
Kanawha
American
River, I
word.
believe it is, just like Illinois or
Ohio.
Right. Yeah.
Those words.
I believe most of the Midwestern states are right.
What do you mean done dirty? What do you mean?
West Virginia was formed through a vote. Should we break away from Virginia and stay with the Union? It's really easy to win a loyalist vote when the young men are forced to go off and fight a war for Virginia to defend the state. And once all of the men had left to fight in the war, those that remained voted to fracture off the state from Virginia and join the Union.
Jeez.
And when the young men returned after the war and were like, this is Virginia, the Supreme Court ruled, no, it's not. Virginia, it's actually a big Supreme Court case that happened just after the Civil War. Virginia argued that the war is over. Virginia must be retained as whole. And they said, nope. So it's pretty wild to think.
Virginia would have been huge. It was huge.
It was massive.
West Virginia's huge and Virginia huge on
I'm glad
their
it
own,
happened.
But me too.
I mean, it's done dirty, but West Virginia's based and Virginia is not so
I
based.
love it here.
We need more states. Yeah,
We need
the
more
more the
states.
merrier.
It is fascinating to be here. Like, guys, if you come out here, you walk 10 feet and there's like a placard with a picture talking about the Civil War and what happened. Mm-hmm. We drive up the road like 10 miles and Antietam is right here. and the cannons are there memorialized,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a bunch of different plaques explaining what happened.
Yep.
Man,
Dude,
it's
I
crazy.
know-
Gettysburg's 40 minutes away.
I know a local gravedigger, and he's always just like, I go to church with him, and he's like, I found more Civil War bones. You know, he's always finding from the battlefield surgeries.
We got a Civil War bayonet.
Oh, nice.
And Shane, you're convinced on the ghosts.
On the ghost? Well, I think landscapes can be haunted by mass trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, they call that
Yeah.
phantom DNA.
Yeah, it's in there.
The
It's in there.
photons bind to DNA, and then when the DNA is removed, the photons stay there for a while.
I don't know about the photons, but think of all the blood spilt on this land. I mean, in all these towns near where we're at, they were all turned into hospitals to saw limbs off men, right? There's churches where they're like, yeah, the wood here is still stained from blood,
Yo.
you know?
And
Isn't
what
it
book can we
wild?
read about that?
Oh, that's Inverted World Volume 2. Thank you.
Isn't it wild that like if they just knew to pour whiskey on some guys, like if they take the bullet out, pour water on it, and then pour whiskey into it,
Yep.
you might be okay.
Yeah.
Like
Here's some
imagine.
leeches and some whiskey. Just
But they
both
would
it.
drink the whiskey while
Yeah.
getting the amputation. Be like, bro, just clean it. They didn't know. It's wild. Wash your hands was what, like 1907 or something. Yeah. People didn't wash their, and it's like I love the story of when they were like discovering germs, and the doctor's like, perhaps you should wash. It was because women were dying in childbirth or whatever, and he was like, maybe if we wash our hands before. And they're like, that's crazy. What are you talking about? Like, and then they did, and then like women started dying less.
I was watching, it might be the Kings and Generals YouTube channel. There's a few channels where they do like historical battle document.
Nice.
And one of it's Civil War. I think it
reenactors?
was. No, it's like a map, and it'll show like the generals' faces as the troops move around on the map, and they'll tell you like from the south, Stonewall Jackson came in and split his troops off, General this guy and this guy, but Sherman or whoever, and it became very real. Like things started to seem like they were my friends, and I was picturing them outside running through these hills,
Yep.
and it's like just with bayonets.
That's
and,
something I walked away from that Inverted World book that I wrote when I was in Georgia is like, even those battles are so contested amongst historians. I saw two men almost get into a fist fight in a historic like museum because they were disagreeing on whether or not loyalists, this is the revolution, were on horses or not. And they got so mad and they couldn't even agree on that. And you look at all these documents, they don't even.
Dude, Gettysburg is awesome.
Oh, it's
I
crazy.
really recommend anybody ever get a chance because they got awesome food. They've got chocolate shops. They got souvenirs everywhere. You can buy cannonballs. There's so much like Civil War refuse still everywhere to be found.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nuts. And then when we drove up there, because it's like seriously 40 minutes away, there's like just reenactors everywhere. Like every road you're driving down, there's like guys in like costume. That's kind of weird. I don't understand why you'd want to do that, but I love the history.
It's
so,
huge.
you know.
I mean, I grew up in West Point. I grew up around reenactors. It was just part of life.
We went to it's really crazy. I can't remember where we were. I think were you with us when we went to that aquarium?
Yeah.
And we watched the
Yes.
story of the ironclad.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
awesome.
North Carolina or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy.
I don't remember exactly where it was, but they were I think it was North Carolina.
Yeah.
The ironclad and its invention was like insane. The Confederates were going house to house and confiscating farm tools to make iron for ironclads.
Yeah.
Because these ironclads were like basically indestructible steamships that could go upriver and downriver and could deflect cannon fire. And
gnarly.
there's a crazy story where, and the people listening might know the story better than me. We were watching this video that was like, show, and there was like sounds and you can see the lights. It was like in an aquarium, and they talked about it. I guess it's like an artificial reef or something. But anyway, this Union guy, as their ship is approaching the ironclad and they're fighting, it's having no effect. He just like instructs them to keep firing and then runs up. Someone didn't do it, and then he like pulls the cord or whatever to fire the cannon, and someone yells no. The cannonball hits the ironclad, bounces in the air, lands back on the ship, blowing him up, killing him. Yeah, dude, the ironclads, it was amazing, dude. War is nuts.
Dude, the Union was, they call them Sherman neckties. You guys know about those? They to stop the flow of, food and ammo on the railroads, they would burn the train tracks and then wrap them off the ground and around trees. Those are called Sherman neckties.
Whoa, like they would
Rip
bend the metal?
after heating them up so much so they could then move them.
Wow.
So
the trains would just go off and crash.
Yeah, they would stop. Yeah.
Dude, Sherman was just like a psychopath.
Sherman was our first atom bomb. We sent him to the South to blow it up. And he didn't care. He killed freed slaves. He was a nut. He was nuts.
He was torching farms. He was just, I think it It's not the first, but for like American history, it is the advent of scorched earth policy.
Yeah, and he learned it at West Point, where all the generals in the Civil War were. He was like, I'm going to show you how it's really done.
William Tecumseh Sherman.
William Tecumseh Sherman.
They named the tank after him, the Sherman
That's
tank.
right. That's right.
For the record, that channel is called History Marsh, Marche. The video I was looking at was called Chancellorsville.
Sweet.
I don't know if you guys know Chancellorsville. I've never been there before. Robert E. Lee's greatest battle. Robert E. Lee apparently was just a brilliant guy fighting for his home state of Virginia.
Yeah, also went to West Point.
He was like friends with a lot of the other generals in the Union. They were like knew each other and stuff.
They all did.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
And they fought together in the Mexican-American War?
I believe, yeah. Yeah, they're all boys. I mean, Jefferson Davis went to West Point. All of them, except for Lincoln.
Yeah.
Lincoln was just some outsider.
He was a boxer in Illinois, right?
Boxer, lawyer.
Lawyer.
Yeah. Crazy.
Tall, lanky guy.
Yep.
And then he was not. He was a staunch racist.
Yeah.
Everyone was.
He wanted to send all black people back
to Liberia.
Was it Liberia?
Liberia, yeah.
Pretty sure that's what they did, right?
There are many stories of brothers fighting against each other.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It was so. But then this is the beautiful thing. I mean, West Point. They started the Association of Grads. I believe that's what it's called after the war to be like, all right, we all fought and killed each other, but let's be brothers again. And so it's pretty amazing.
So Liberia, which is in West Africa, started in the 19th century. Between 1822 and 1861, 15,000 freed and freeborn African Americans, along with 3,198 Afro-Caribbeans, relocated to Liberia, gradually developing an Americo-Liberian identity. The settlers carried their culture and tradition with them. Liberia declared independence July 26, 1847, which the U.S. did not recognize until 1862. But I believe they also had Americanized a constitution and policy and things like that.
I think they had a southern culture too, where they had slaves and slave owners too, if I'm not mistaken. They adopted what the plantation system in the South and then just projected it onto
they were
their
like
new
this,
homes.
we like this human slavery thing that's been going on since the beginning of time.
No, it's really effed up because it was really also all they knew. It was the only economic system they knew. It was they were emancipated slaves, and I don't know. They did the evil that was done onto others, but
people need to understand too. A lot of people don't realize this. The North was super racist.
Yeah,
just abject racism, and you know how it's really easy to understand. Segregation continued in all of these places until the end of the 50s or whatever, until the Civil Rights Act, even like 60s.
60s, yeah.
So this idea that these abolitionists were like, we oppose racism, is like, no, they were very racist.
Well, I'm sure the John Brown types were not segregationists, but
you know what people also don't understand too? Like, people really need to read this. There were slaves that got paid. One of the things that happens is everybody sees these movies and these stories where it's a plantation where a guy's being beaten, which happened, is horrifying, is really bad, and it was a lot of slavery. But there were also slaves who worked in homes, there were slaves who worked in shops, and there were slaves who received pay. And there were slaves who bought their own freedom with the money that they earned working as a slave. And I think it's important that people understand the nuances and the context around a lot of this, because then you'll understand how it was possible. Like I read about Frederick Douglass and I read about these other freed slaves, and it's like they bought their slavery or they bought their freedom, and I'm like, wait, what? And then I'm like, oh, interesting. The system was not the movie system people think it was. It is actually much more complicated and nuanced, albeit the whole thing, in my view, completely wrong. And I think everyone's kind of realized that around the world, except for maybe North Africa.
I mean, it goes to show how long it takes for ideology to change. I mean, and it's going to take, another 50, 100 years for a lot of the modern inverted racism to go away. Like, it's really embedded. It takes
the Democrats are getting CPR to racism as hard as they can.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe, but time is more about motion and the ability for information to travel. So with the internet
speeding up,
data transfers so quickly that it can metamorphise ideologies rapidly.
That's very true.
For good or evil. It's a matter of making people comfortable and manipulating them casually, I think.
There are people who experience segregation still alive today. I don't know. That's wild.
It's called vaccine passports.
But there,
black and white segregation. Vaccine passport stuff was wrong, but black and white.
I know.
But I do think we may. Actually, I'll say this. I don't know if we're tending towards an end of gender segregation. That's what the gender ideologues have pushed for, using the same argument for that was used against racial segregation. Considering Shane Gill is hosting SNL this weekend, certainly think the woke are losing, so I'm not so sure that will happen. But a bunch of the left have made the argument that gender segregation is no different than racial segregation. And there's no argument for it, especially when the 1964 Civil Rights Act forbids discrimination on the basis of sex. So there was a case in California where some guy sued the Women in Computing Club. He's like, a university had a club for women in computing. It's not fair. I should be allowed to join. You're discriminating against me. And the courts ruled there's a club that men can join. So it's not discriminatory. If there's a club you can join, they're not saying you can't be in a club. This one's just for women. That one's for men.
By the way,
that's an interesting, real quick, that argument lends itself to segregation. If there's 2 bathrooms and one's for white people, one's for black people, then you're not being discriminated against. But we've already said no to that. So this case in California seems questionable, which resulted in leftists now arguing you cannot create 2 bathrooms for 2 protected categories. That is discrimination under the law, period. And so now we're at the point where legally they're correct. Absolutely. If the 1964 Civil Rights Act says you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex or race, and we've determined that bathrooms based on race are discrimination, then it follows that sex bathrooms also are. But we also have a common sense and moral line where we're like, men and women are different, males and females are different. That's why we do this, to which the left has now countered the argument saying that used to be the position of the segregationists, that black and white people were different. And so it was for safety reasons they had different spaces. They're trying to use the exact same arguments. Many conservatives and libertarians have pointed out the 1964 Civil Rights Act has created the path to wokeness to create things where like dudes are going in girls' bathrooms.
Do you buy that it's on the same level?
I do think men and women's bathroom is equal to segregation, but I support that type of segregation. We are segregating people by gender.
Right, no, but not gender, but like with,
sex,
you know, say it was only a black area at a college.
I don't think we should have that. I think it's okay to segregate by genders. I don't think we should be segregating by race.
Do you think that new modern race segregation at schools is on the same level as historic?
Yes.
Wait. Ask that one more time.
Yeah. Wait,
what?
I'm saying, you know, if there was like what Brett Weinstein.
You're saying like when they do these POC only rooms, it's the same segregation.
I'm saying, I'm asking if you think it's the same level of segregation as it was traditionally.
Oh, no way. No. I think they're both stupid safe spaces, but
and it was when it was institutionalized in every facet where like you couldn't go into a certain store or whatever. That's a higher degree of segregation.
Okay,
occurring.
so you think that it's lesser?
It's not. It's a fact. You're asking a fact-based question. If there's 100 universities that have within their university system one instance where they've created a black-only space, that is factually less than the entirety of the country having segregation as a standardized policy.
I'm with you, Elad. I think that segregating based on sex is very different than racial segregation.
We've made it a dirty word, but I think when we're actually talking about here isn't a bad thing. Go
on. What can you determine about someone based on the color of their skin?
Like nothing. Almost nothing. Almost some genetic ancestry.
The reason, let's expand this though, because a lot of people are like, oh, come on. No. Like seriously, like a dude from Somalia and a dude from Haiti are different people. Yeah. They have a dark skin tone, but they're going to be very different. Somalis are shorter than Haitians who are taller. So what's your determination? Skin color is not a good metric for any kind of segregation. You can't even really determine someone's ethnic background or what part of the world they come from based on the color of their skin. Yeah. Like, I went to Egypt, they thought I was Egyptian. Yep. And I'm not. I go to Spain, they thought I was Hispanic. I go to Mexico, they think I'm Mexican. Right. They can't tell. So how someone looks isn't a good determining factor. However, males and females globally, everywhere, period, are different. And so that I get.
Yep. That lady from The View recently found out she's not as Puerto Rican.
Oh man, that was so funny. Look. Let's do this. Sunny. View's Sunny Hostin shocked to find she's descended from Spanish slaveholders.
Wait, is this one of those weird one? Like, people can also be descendants of slaves if their ancestors were raped by their slave owners and. Like,
well, and of course,
I just wanted to make.
But let's see your reaction.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican. You know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that.
Because you married a slave owner.
I think it's great for our children.
Descendant.
Mm-hmm.
to know this information.
Who was it? There was a big story where it was like another View person. They found out they were a descendant of slave owners, and a lot of people on the right were like, ha ha ha, and I'm like, oh, bro, that means like the slave owner raped their slave. Come on,
Yeah.
like that's probably what it means. Right. So we were hanging out with some guy today. We were hanging out with Matt from Base Records, good dude, and I didn't know if he wanted me to tell the story or not, but I'll say his name because he made the point. But I've made this statement to a lot of people before. When it comes up to my ethnic background and being part Korean, I'm like, I'm I'm part Korean but a little bit Japanese. Like, my mom's 40% Korean, 10% Japanese. Everyone goes, ooh, because you know what that means.
Yeah,
that's
some crazy.
It's not a Romeo and Juliet Japanese guy being like, I don't care what my family thinks. I love you too. It's more like burn the house down and take the women kind of thing. You know what I mean?
That still causes tensions in South Korea and Japan to this day.
Oh,
too.
dude,
It's
they're
not
both.
even-
The South Koreans are totally ethno-supremacists.
Yeah. Well, many people in those.
But I mean, like South Koreans, the younger generation is moving away from it, but they are very ethno-supremacist.
There's a famous clip now of from what's it? I think it's called Bad Friends with Andrew Santino and
Bobby
Lee, right? And then he's like saying, "Oh, Koreans never did slavery, or whatever," and they fact check him. And it turns out Koreans had slavery for like over 1,000 years.
No, but
broken slavery. Which is
Bobby
crazy.
Lee constantly talks about how racist they are.
I know, of course. But they were
Yeah.
just pointing out the fact that like that's the reality. Is that racism has been around way longer, and slavery's been around way longer than just suddenly in the 1800s in the U.S. And everyone always gets that
They're
wrong.
also a very patriarchal society.
Extremely,
very, very patriarchal.
Yeah.
Koreans,
yeah.
Yeah, they're mostly Korean supremacist. Yeah. They believe that they are the best superior race on the planet, and they have no problem telling you that. And they're like,
they call it the Korean Nobi system, which is commonly associated with slavery and social hierarchy in pre-modern Korea. Don't know
And
much
for
about
people, the Japanese and Koreans who should be allies geopolitically right now, especially considering what's going on with China, still beef with one another over the conflict
the actions of the Imperial
World
Army
War
in
II.
Japan.
Yes,
Yeah.
so-called. Who they still revere over in Japan, but we don't need to shit on our allies now.
When I went to South Korea, I went to this museum where I learned about a great general, a naval general, and it was really hilarious because each like room you walked through depicted a great victory. But the funny thing I noticed was every great victory, the size of the Navy was getting smaller. And so it's like in the first one, there's these big fleets, and it's like the great general routed the Japanese and forced their ships off. And I was like, wow. I walk in the next room, and then it's like facing insurmountable odds. He was able to drive back the Japanese forces with a small force. And I was like, interesting. And then finally in the end, it's like him and like a small handful of guys. And I was like, you mean to tell me like he was losing the whole time?
Right. It's a nice way of putting it.
Right.
Yeah. It
But they
ends with
like
a little
highlight the
diorama.
great stories of his successes, like
course.
fair point, but it was an attrition. So
Yeah, sometimes a retreat can be what you call successful. If the enemy loses more than you lose in the retreat, that's a successful retreat.
dude, we have where was this in New Jersey? I think there's the I forgot what the name of the park is, but they've got the story of I think it's Mercer. I can't remember the guy's name. This dude who was like surrounded by the British, and then he just like told him to kill him. He would never like betray the country. There's cannons everywhere, and it's like where Washington crossed the Delaware or something. Wow. It's fun to go to these places. Growing up in Chicago, we didn't have any of this.
Right.
It doesn't exist. It's like you just live in Chicago. But then you move out to the East Coast, and it's just like these plaques everywhere talking about the war. Out here, it's really crazy because we're like 5 minutes from John Brown Raid HQ, where John Brown organized the Harper's Ferry raid. Like Harper's Ferry is literally here, down the street. And what is it? What's going on?
No,
His house is the only house I ever thought should have a Black Lives Matter sign outside of it. It's like,
Yeah, right.
That one actually makes sense.
But he tried to trigger a slave revolt, and they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, nah, get out of here.
First man hung by the state.
For treason.
Was he first?
Yeah.
I feel like he was first.
John Brown. They banned him from the ballot.
What's funny is
President.
the local casino, this is kind of wild. The local casino has their $25 chips at Charlestown has John Brown. Some of them have John Brown on it. And I'm like, it's kind of wild because like depending on who wins the war, the most vile and despicable people will be heralded as heroes.
Sherman.
Sherman's
just another version of Brown, but on a larger scale. Well, no,
John Brown was definitely a terrorist.
Brown wanted to
although
actually
he
free
might have been
slaves.
fighting for things that were morally right.
Brown
and
wanted
I
to free
think
slaves.
is a dangerous person to idolize because I mean there are a lot of people who believe passionately some political things right now and shouldn't justify violence to try to achieve those ends. But that's what John Brown did. And I think some leftists especially idolize him and but in a misleading way. And
John Brown
very dangerous.
But they would see him as far right today. Because
I don't think so.
He's a Christian. He's super Christian. That's why he was against slavery. You know, like, but they wouldn't care. Like, they wouldn't agree with Putin denazifying.
You think John Brown would support gay marriage?
No.
No, absolutely not.
No. He'd do a lot of bad things about all these things happening.
Yo, Sherman, though. Like, that guy was just like wanton disregard for human life.
I think you could argue that Sherman was trying to end the conflict quicker via his brutal means to save more American lives.
I think he wanted an excuse to murder and destroy.
I think you're at war with somebody.
Yeah.
And I mean,
yeah,
you're trying to end the war within your own country.
Yeah, but I think that's war crimes when you're in charge of killing all these people. He killed innocent people, freed slaves. He killed people on the sidelines in the periphery of the war. It wasn't just he was going after the Confederates. They just burned everything.
We could go through individual instances, but like, I think war is terrible and
war is terrible.
Like, he was trying to end the war.
But we should avoid war crimes. Like, do you think we should have dropped the atom bomb?
Yeah, I definitely think
I don't know if I agree with that
bomb.
either. And I see the two as the same thing, as desperate reasons to end a war.
No, I think Imperial Japan kind of gets looking back, they get a good rep. They were literally the Nazis of the Pacific.
Insane.
Yeah.
They were insane.
So, and this is at a point where we were in total war. With Japan.
Yeah.
It's over until it's not. And how many hundreds of thousands of American troops' lives are worth trying to invade the homeland where the Japanese were trying to say they're going to fight until every last life? I also think it's really easy for us looking back to go, oh, well, maybe, maybe you actually should have just invaded, would have been the largest amphibious assault on the mainland ever. It's easy to.
I agree with looking back with 2020 vision, or you have 2020 vision, but I also just the war crimes and the innocent lives lost.
But the definition was different.
Yeah. Is there any war where there aren't any war crimes, though? I feel like we can say that every time for every side. I'm sure the Confederates committed war crimes. I'm too lazy to look into them.
What were considered war crimes back then?
Well, you could look at were
the Geneva Conventions? Yeah, did they have?
Nope.
Geneva.
There were no war crimes. But I mean, there's still ethically and morally war crimes.
I'm spacing right now. Who had Anderson Prison? Was that the north or the south? Andersonville. Was that the north or the south?
Dude, that movie is so good.
South. That was South.
That's my
prison,
favorite
right?
Civil War movie, probably.
That was insane. I never saw the movie, but
there's a book too.
It was kind of like a Unit 731 in Japan without all of the modern technology.
Except for like the human vivisection and like experimentation.
Right. They weren't dry freezing hands and shattering them, but it was so horrific.
Also, they had literal slaves in the South.
Yeah. Right. I still don't agree with everything Sherman did. And I don't agree with dropping
totally.
the bomb. And every war has
not that
things.
totally for the second part. You don't have to agree with I don't know anybody who I could agree with everything they did, but I think you could say Sherman helped end the war sooner than it would have otherwise. I feel like it's the same argument I'm using for Japan, actually.
Right. You're
on the same side.
I think if the context of the Civil War happened today, I'm not so convinced the North would be able to win.
I think the South would be crazy.
I think the issue is the speed of communications. I think that if videos started emerging, like the psychological effect of video and information would have such a dramatic change. I mean, the march to the sea, I don't know could happen in an urban environment today, because the moment the internet, like the North and the South were competing for international supplies. They needed trade. The South, I think, where they were trading cotton with the UK.
That's where that flag came from. British boat.
A British boat.
Yeah, they seized it.
So the North blockaded the South, trying to cut their supplies. What would happen internationally if videos emerged of, let's just say in literally 1861, but with internet video? Videos emerge of civilians being shot in cold blood by Union soldiers. International relations for the North would shatter. And they'd say, no, we did not supply and we don't condone that, because they would face revolts in their own countries over the supplying of over the facilitating of war crimes. It would cause them a lot of problems.
Is that new A24 movie out yet?
No.
Tim, I think
Do you
it would
think
be
that'll be
interesting
accurate?
because I think there would be people. There could be clear video of war crimes happening, of whatever civil war would happen. There would still be people denying it. There would
Probably.
people be blaming the other side. Oh, they killed their own people. I'm just thinking
I
about
agree.
the October 7th attack and the amount of gaslighting that will exist. Even if there was footage of people being slaughtered and killed, obviously people who were civilians, people don't care, and we're disgusting humans.
You're right to a certain degree, but the October 7th attack has resulted in the left shattering. And you've got Michael Rappaport. This was his turn. He hates Trump. All of a sudden, he's wearing a Star of David, and he says, "What the is wrong with these people?" That's opened a door for him to start exploring more about what they're doing. And now he's like, the cops are being beaten. When people realize Black Lives Matter was celebrating these paragliders, I mean, look, I got no beef with someone criticizing Israel's military actions. It's a war. Okay, by all means, please criticize people's military actions. It should be done. And there is a risk to Israel in that a lot of this propaganda is being supported by the left. But man, what Hamas did really, really messed up the progressive left in this country. Sherman's march to the sea was absolutely brutal. I mean, it is historically canon. He was destroying civilian targets and killing civilians. He did not care. It was scorched earth. Everything must burn. On that scale, the problem with the Confederates, one of the reasons they lost, they thought all they had to do was prove they had the military might and the fighting would stop. They did not realize the Union was going to burn their children and burn homes to the ground to win this. And not that I'm a fan of, what the Confederacy would have implemented. It's a good thing they lost, but holy crap. I'm not a fan of dropping nuclear bombs on Japan. But at the first Battle of Bull Run, they repel the Union, and they're like, that's it. The war is over. There's not going to be a war. We just proved that they can't come in here. And then they came in and started just brutalizing the South. This mobilized the South, feeling that they were being invaded. And then eventually a turn happened where, I forget which general, it might have been, I don't know, Jackson. They felt that the only way to actually win this was to invade the North and put pressure on the North to stop supporting this war. Civilians in the North needed to understand what the war was, and it was an opportunity for them to seize resources. Unfortunately, they moved into Gettysburg. Didn't go too well for the Confederates. Yep. But I imagine what would happen if the international community was watching something akin to the March to the Sea. It is hard enough for U.S. troops dealing with IEDs and strapping, like they strap bombs to kids. And then you end up with American soldiers being placed into a military tribunal or whatever, or court-martialed because of the perception of what they did, not what they had to do to defend themselves. There's no way I could see Union soldiers in many of these circumstances being able to defend the actions if they were blasted out on the internet around the world. And that would cause problems for the Union's ability to supply itself. That being said, they had a lot of resources in and of themselves. I don't know that, what would have happened if they didn't have international support. But
I'm sure.
Anyway, we should go to Super Chats because we went a little over here. So we'll go to Super Chats.
Nice Civil War chat inspired by
that
the
flag. That was good fun.
Yeah.
Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com, click join us. The members only show will be up at 10 p.m. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a lot of good fun. And as a member, you get access to our Discord server as well, where you can submit questions, call in, and talk to us and our guests. Here we go. Manipple says pee pee poo poo.
Yeah.
I will read your Super Chat. Thank you.
Agreed.
Token Black Guy says, Tim Pool, you have been called. You are the mayor West Virginia needs. Time to take the mantle. The mayor of where? Charlestown? I don't want to be a mayor. Not interested. I think it was because I was saying, if I was ever, if I got elected president or governor, Trump, you ain't seen nothing with Trump. Vivek, no way, dude. I would not just go to my AG and be like, can we get criminal charges? I would go on television. I would do a live stream and issue a statement about the requirement for this nation and the reasons why certain individuals must be criminally charged, must face an investigation and a trial by a jury of their peers. And I would formally declare, it must be done. Now I give it to those in the executive branch with the authority to make those positions happen. But let my intentions be clear to the American people. Certain people in this country must be criminally charged. They're like Joe Biden, the Burisma stuff. Mm-hmm. It is absurd. And they use this documents case as the shield. He's not going to be criminally charged because he's a doddering old fool. And you know what they're really saying? He'll never face charges over Burisma. Nah, I was saying, if I was the governor of West Virginia, I would do a public assessment or a public statement where I'd say law enforcement of the state of West Virginia must immediately begin the process of a raid on CBP facilities in the Eastern Panhandle. And I have already called on to the extent that I can, the Attorney General and our prosecutors to seek out warrants from judges allowing state forces to raid that facility for evidence of human trafficking and smuggling operations they have engaged in. Let them panic. And people might say, but then you're informing them you're doing it. Oh, yes, that's the point. And then if they don't do it, I'll say, hey, I made my declaration. I did what I could do. I don't expect it to be dictatorial that everyone just does when I bang a gavel. I expect them to go through the legal process and go to a judge and make the argument. But I want to make sure everybody knows. You got this big CBP facility. You got CBP agents out here. They know the show. And I'm like, there's videos of them working with cartels. It's mind blowing to see like the cartels bring these people up and they're armed. CBP is like, howdy. And they open the gate and bring them in. I'm disgusted by that. Anyway.
Raid Area 51 in Wright-Patterson while you're at it, please.
I mean, I feel like depending on the public and apparent crimes that need to be, held to account, I don't know that Area 51 has those. And I respect the right of the U.S. military to have secrets. Depending on those secrets, we can't just announce to the world our military capabilities, our security be compromised. But, let's read more. Jennifer Lopinto says, I want to shout out my husband, Sean, who has largely been an influence in my recovery from leftist ideology. He loves this show, and so do I. This is the way. Shout out.
Nice. Sean.
That's the way. Husbands, lighten the path.
S-E-A-N or S-H-A-W-N?
S-E-A-N.
Nice, dude.
It's a healthy marriage.
That's right. Ian Kinney says, it blows my mind that I live in Wisconsin and never heard about the Chippewa Falls School until last night. Chippewa Falls is on the other side of the state from me, closer to the Minnesota border. That's where that shooting almost took place. Well. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, oh no, guys, I watched the Tucker v. Putin interview. MSM was right. I'm now a Putin puppet, and I want to work with Russia to undermine our democracy. Oh no. Oh, geez.
Watch out. Don't do those memes. You might get in trouble for something.
Yeah. Stinky Man says, would you buy Bud Light if during the Super Bowl, Dylan came out and said, 365 of drinking Bud Light. I've grown a beard and work out daily. I built a deck without permits. I have chickens.
I heard they're doing a Super Bowl ad.
And it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, it's already out?
Yeah, it's stupid. They release Super Bowl ads before the Super Bowl now. They do.
That is stupid.
But, the commercial, you can watch it and you're going to be like, what?
Yeah.
It's just nothing. It's the weirdest. It's not even funny. Like, I talk about the Quiznos subs where those stupid rat things are like, we like to eat sandwiches or whatever. And that's everyone remembers it. This one is not memorable at all. It's just like the stupidest random commercial. I can't believe they tried doing this during the Super Bowl. We broke the company, guys. They're broke. Faust says, Elad, you're a mad lad, my lad. Take my money, Dad. Really love your reporting style. Followed you all through the summer of love. I appreciate you, dude.
Thanks for the super chat, guys. Follow us at Timcast News on Twitter. We do a lot of great field reporting, and other journalists here doing a great job.
Also, the SCNR YouTube channel has all your videos up on it. So if you go to SCNR on YouTube, subscribe, you can watch Elad's reporting.
One of my favorites is you running after the person in the golf cart. Was that like a year
Russell
or two ago?
Fry while he was running, in North Carolina.
Great video. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, man, you're the best.
Third Eye says, yo, Tim, please read. I haven't laughed so hard in a long time. The Babylon Bee just dropped the funniest article I've ever read. Biden calls for the president to step down. Very nice.
Knowing their track record, that could become true.
Venom Symbiont says, did anyone else see the horrible Tucker Carlson deepfake Bitcoin ad? It popped up for me during the show. Sketchy. Whoa, that means YouTube's running it.
I've been seeing Mr. Beast deep AI ads on Instagram and stuff.
They did it with Joe Rogan a while ago.
Yep.
There was a fake ad. Yeah, what was that?
It's like weird supplements.
It was like a testosterone thing to make your dick bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was an AI of Joe Rogan. It sounded really weird. He was like, well, the thing is about this, it makes you big. And then the guy was like, that's right. And I'm like, yo, this is
It's the most classic scam.
Yeah.
Make it bigger? Come on, guys.
Hey, man, people spend money on anything. You know what I mean? Let's go. What do we got here? Jason Hutchinson says, if he's too old to be held to account, he's too old to be president. This is very dumb. What are we doing? That's right.
What should the age limit be?
I don't know about age limit.
Or, just aptitude limit.
Maybe there should be.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be 35 to 60.
To argue to the other side of it, it's anti-democratic. You get left with what you pick. We're picking these older people. The Democrats pick Joe Biden.
Then why have a lower limit?
Oh, no, we shouldn't have a lower limit either. Anti-democratic.
5-year-old.
I mean, they wouldn't have a good caucus. Nobody would want to vote for them. But yeah, 5-year-old.
I actually fear fake presidents. That we're going to come to the point where everyone's going to be watching the news and there's going to be a guy who makes arguments and says all these things and he's going to be AI generated and not real, but no one knows because everyone just sees him in these videos.
Just like all the boyfriends and girlfriends right now.
I'm going to take Bucko downstairs, so I wanted to say hello and goodbye for everyone that hasn't seen him yet.
You guys match a little bit.
Yeah, you match.
Yeah, they do match.
Go, Lucas. I'll be back.
Mr. Bokus, seeing his way out. He came up here before the show and he jumped up on the table and then just laid in front of me with his just flat, not a good sign. So, we let him stick around. But it's just impossible to know what to do because he's on all these drugs and the drugs do cause problems, but they alleviate some problems as well. We got him stem cells. And so I'm like, what if we got him stem cells and they're working, but the drugs he's on is actually inhibiting his potential recovery? What do we do? And so it's just like, stay the course, I guess. But he got real sick the other day, collapsed, pissed himself, couldn't move. So I've been giving him raw beef, which I don't know is the right thing to do, but I have two thoughts on it. One is, if he's about to die and he was supposed to die a year ago, little man gets to have his last meal and it's going to be what he wants.
Yeah,
what
he wants to eat enjoys that the most?
He goes nuts for it.
There it is.
So I give him a little bit. But I'm also hoping that I've read a bunch of studies about raw meat diets for animals. I'm hoping that it is beneficial to him in some way as a very low phosphorus meat. Maybe this actually can get him what he needs, and I doubt it. But I'm also kind of like, dude is on his last days. Quality of life, it matters.
I don't know, dude. You said that a year ago, and he's still going.
I didn't want to bring that up. Every time I come here, it's always the last day.
Yeah, but he
so
weighs nothing now.
Yeah.
Like last year, he was sick, and they said he was going to live for a week. We got him a bunch of drugs. We got him hydration therapy. We got him on stem cells, and he stabilized. But he is slowly withering away. So when we see him collapse, piss himself, and then struggle to move, we're like, he might have died right there on the spot. So it's kind of like, that's the worst we've seen it. And then when he came up here and jumped on the table and the way he laid down, it looked like he was struggling to move. Like he was just burned out. He's losing weight. Can't wait. And we're like, we got to figure out how to put weight on him. But if he can't, because his kidneys are busted, what can you do,
Every day's a blessing.
It's brutal because every time everyone comes here, they're like, oh, is he old? And I'm like, no, he's 5. He just has a heart problem, a heart defect, genetic heart defect, and underdeveloped kidneys. There's nothing we could do. We were going to get him a kidney transplant, but because of his heart, we can't. They do this thing where you adopt a cat that's to be put down, and they share the kidneys, and you have to adopt both cats. Wow. So you save both their lives. Wow. And so we were like, can we do this? And they said, Mr. Bokus will die if you give him a kidney transplant because of his heart. He can't take it. We were like, damn.
Yeah, we did the right thing. He's eating heavily right now. He went right for the food.
Nice.
That's good.
He hungered.
That's good. All right. Thinker for Life says, did we forget Obama poked the bear during Sochi Olympics? Let's see, what is it? Gays didn't like the Russian law that forbids gay influence of children, so Obama sent our top advocate, Billie Jean King. Really? Yeah, Sochi is wild. The Olympics are wild because, the reports are that they all just bang each other nonstop. Have you guys read that?
In the villages, yeah, and then they make the Olympic babies because they're supposedly be genetic studs.
So the Olympics are
Olympic
like
babies.
athletic eugenics.
Well, I went to school at University of Utah.
When you put that word on it, that'll make anything sound terrible.
Right. But I went to school at University of Utah, and that's where they had the O2 Salt Lake City games. There's the whole athlete village or whatever is basically where the dorms are. And I've heard a lot of stories about that from the old staff that live there. So
Tayswell says, why does Ian look like a character from Baldur's Gate 3 tonight?
Because Richie Jackson gave me this, clothed me. Well, I clothed myself, but Richie Jackson gave me the outfit. And he is a bard. Or I guess he would be. Is Richie a bard? Is Richie more of a rogue than a bard? He's kind of like a...
I don't know. He's not a rogue.
He'd carry a rapier around if he was in Baldur's Gate. He'd be like, on guard!
I think bard.
Richie?
Yeah.
He's an athlete. He's not really a musician. He looks like a bard.
Have School of Swords or College of Swords or whatever it's called.
Like a non-musical bard.
No, he's a musical guy. He's super musical.
He loves music.
He can tell you everything about rock and roll. I guess he knows all of it.
Only Richie will tell.
You can ask him the most obscure rock question. He'll have the answer for you.
Yeah,
definitely a bard. Let's go. OMG Puppy says releasing a spy wouldn't get Putin anything. Western press wouldn't reward him. It wouldn't phase the neocons or lessen their obsession with destroying Russia. No, but it could press public support in a negative position, and that's what they're desperately trying to avoid. That's what they're scared of. That being said, I think the evidence here is this dude Evans got information that Putin's scared of.
What I don't understand about that, though, is why they don't trade him and then Putin just scoop up another American journalist or another American in Russia. So
Big Fat Irving says Russia has Evan Gershkovich, Ukraine has Gonzalo Lira. Why is one reporter more important than the other? Gonzalo Lira may be dead. I believe it was his father who said that he had died. So, right, it is funny that in the United States they don't care at all about Gonzalo Lira. So, sorry, Evan. The machine here hates you for what you are. Frontline Texan says, Tim, I'm curious, what makes you believe the media would report if Tucker succeeded in bringing him back? And if they did, it's not likely that they would spin it as Tucker is a Russian puppet and it was staged. They could. I'm saying it would amplify the Tucker story no matter what, good or bad. It would make it the biggest thing in the country. The rescuing of an American journalist. Tucker already has the eyeballs on him. Now you add in the rescuing of a journalist. Good on Tucker for asking. Not that it didn't work, but good luck. All right. Stephen Scray says Ian Crossland started working out, found Jesus, and then realized that America actually should impose righteous, lawful, and proper rule upon the world. This happened tonight.
Jesus is pretty cool. I worked out earlier today. And yes,
and
American
Ian's
constitutionalism is legitimate.
Ian's been calling for neocon policy now for a long time.
I just think we need to inspire people to do it for themselves. I don't think walking around being like, do my thing has not worked, and I don't imagine would. But when people have had enough and they're like, what they have is better, I want what they have, and they're looking at me and our country, then we'll see them have their own decentralized revolution.
Eric Elman says, for preserving the flag. Yes, and Devin Porter said, Tim, I'm a millwork drafter. I work for a company that builds casework. I can draw a case for that flag. So like a case with like a glass front so it's on display.
Oh, nice.
Because if that's the case, what's the best way to get in touch? Is he able to like DM you or something or message you on Twitter?
Yeah, this is a guy. Yeah, hit me up on Twitter. Send me a DM.
Or admin@scanner.com.
Yeah, you'll get it.
Yeah, I'll get it.
So Devin Porter, if you heard that, admin@SCNR, right? SCNR.com, or hit up Ian on Twitter and we'll get to work on that display case.
Yeah, you're probably better going with Bill since you know.
We should all. I will also get one if you can. We have a Civil War Union musket. It's never been fired, not even dry fired, and I would love to get a case for that and put it like on display too. It's right over there. It's just been sitting against the wall. Yeah, actual Union. There's like 10,000 of them. They made them, had them sitting around, never used them.
Wow.
Yep. Super cool. Heavy.
Yeah, they're
crazy.
they're
Rifled
crazy
musket. Crazy stuff. It was cool. We go antiquing. Yo, if you're in West Virginia, antiquing, dude. There's an antique shop full of Nazi paraphernalia. It's crazy.
Michael Malice would love that.
So, where is it at? It's in the Eastern Panhandle. There's just so many antique shops, but there's this one that is, where is it? It's close to Martinsburg, south of Martinsburg. I don't know exactly which one it is, but there's like, they're malls basically. So people will set up a portion and they pay rent to have their space. But one guy's got a whole bunch of World War II stuff. So it's not just Nazi, but there's like a German captured pistol, and with like the like official thing explaining what it is, who captured it, the rank of the guy, crazy stuff, helmets, insignias.
You know, I worked at an auction gallery for about 10 years, and we had periodically these World War II auctions, and my boss got so mad because a reporter came, and the picture they used of him was him with the giant swastika behind him. So in the local paper, it's just like,
wow,
this is my crazy boss, and then like the giant swastika. It's amazing.
The crazy thing is we went to an antique shop in Austin, and they were selling a bunch of swastikas. And it seemed like the guy who worked there actually got offended at the idea that it was offensive. I was like, don't people like freak out? And he was like, no. He was like, this was a commonplace symbol across the United States pre-World War II, and it is on tons of advertisements, buildings, but now they're all trying to erase it and cover it up. It's true. South side of Chicago, there's a big house that has a swastika built into the top, and they nailed wooden blocks to make it into a square.
Wow. But is it in the same orientation as the swastika? Exact same?
They're not angled.
They're not angled, right.
So it's just like, and they went the other direction, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hitler inverted it and then tilted it.
Right.
But so on the building, it's just a straight up symbol. And then they put the wood blocks to fill the gaps. So it's just a square with lines through it. But you can see it because you can see the blocks. Crazy, man.
On YouTube, there'll be, if you ever watch Hitler's speeches on YouTube, forever, you could just watch the video and you'd watch it. But now a lot of videos made in the last year, they're like, they had a little disclaimer before you start watching and saying, "We do not condone Nazism." Just so you know, it's like, dude, you don't have to say that. It's just a speech. But
yep.
Let's grab some more super chats. Triton54 says Union Jack is the blue section of the U.S. flag, flown from the forward end of U.S. Navy ships. Is that right? I believe Union Jack is a reference to the UK flag.
I'm pretty sure it is. I don't know. Maybe the Union Jack is on those, but I don't know that. I never heard that before.
Yep. Union Jack flag. British flag.
Yeah.
Because Union flag, Union Jack, it's British. Well, there you go. Let's grab a couple more super chats. Maybe we'll just grab 2. Winston Alexander says, I'm half Korean, white, ex-U.S. Army stationed in Korea in the 90s. Was told not to talk about being Korean since the locals would assume my mom was a hooker. Wow. Jeez. Not so much that way today. Now, I think what I was told was that it's more of a novelty. And there's this attitude of deep curiosity. So a journalist told me that if I went to North Korea, they would be like super excited that I was there and try and ask me everything about my family and try and learn as much as possible. Still holding like a disdainful view of like, oof, but how did it happen? You know? So there you go. Good fun. Maybe one day Donald Trump will get reelected and he will help he will help bring peace to the Korean Peninsula, and then I can actually go visit the town for which I believe my great great grandfather, or is it great grandfather? Great I think. Yeah, great grandfather. Actually, awesome. Maybe great grandfather. I don't know.
Your mom's grandpa or something, or her great grandfather?
My mom's great grandfather, I think. I think it's great grandfather. I don't know. It's hard to track these things. I need to ask my mom. But it's funny because like the white side of my family is easy. I go to Europe and I'm like, oh, so this is Ireland. Ah, so this is London. Ah, so this is Germany. I go to Korea and it's like I can't cross that line.
Yeah.
So one side of my mom's side of the family was from the south, one side's from the north, but there was no north or south back then. There was just farm workers. All right, if you haven't already, smash that like button, would you kindly? Share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com, click join us, because that members only show is coming up in just a few minutes. It's not so family friendly. You don't want to miss it. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Bill, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, a couple things. So Minds has expanded. You can now launch your own social network and app based on the Mind software. So if you go to minds.com/about/networks, you can launch your own app that is connected to the decentralized social web. That's what we've done with Scanner on scnr.com. So it now has its own node of the decentralized social world, and you can get all the Scanner articles on there. And apps are coming soon for Scanner on both stores, so keep an eye out for those. And then Minds Fest, we got coming up April 27th at the Vulcan in Austin. It's going to be awesome. And Sean is telling me that we need to challenge Elon and Mark Cuban to come debate DEI.
I want to say we could bill it as the white supremacist versus the African American.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me, man.
What's the website you mentioned? Minds.com/about/networks.
Yeah.
/networks
we need a better
with an S.
Yeah, with an S. Yeah.
My name's Elad Eliyahu. I'm a journalist here at Timcast News. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff. It's been awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
This is a really fun one. You can find me at Shane Cashman online. And tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'll be on Pop Culture Crisis with Brett and Mary. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
This was a good one. And shout out to Richie Jackson for giving me this awesome shirt, Bill. Thanks for bringing the flag. Tim, good show. Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Elad. You too, Shane. Peace. I like how you can like blend into almost any conversation. It's nice.
I'm a ghost.
Yes, you are a chameleon of the mind. Serge Dupree.
Hey, that was a good one. I agree. Good show. Good to have you here, Elad. Likewise, Bill as well.
Thanks,
and
Dave.
Shane, thanks for doing the show.
Of course.
Yeah, let's hit this after show, Tim.
All right, we will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.